Cigarettes, it's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Hey guys, Gabe Taib here. It is Tuesday, November 4th. Welcome to Double Impact. We have an amazing show tonight, guys. We have a special guest. Let me bring them in. My good friend, my co-host, Jericho Greed, of course, is here. And the amazing new friend of mine, new old friend, Bill Frake, legendary animator for Disney, Blue Sky, Warner Brothers. He animated your childhood. He found me when I was on Dana Lash's show doing an interview about the culture war and Big Man Comics. And he emailed me a few times. He sent me some stuff. He said, "Oh, I'm an illustrator too," but I didn't know. And I thought, "Oh, it's like a guy who doodles on napkins and has a regular job," is what I thought at first. And then he told me what he did, and I was like, "Oh, he's been doing this a lot longer than me." And then he was in town from his home in New York. He was visiting California, and he said we should get lunch and this and that. And I didn't really know him. We'd exchanged like 2 or 3 emails. And I remember driving up there with my wife. We went to one of our favorite Italian restaurants in Carlsbad. And I said, "Okay, I don't know this guy, if he's weird or something, just, give me the signal under the table. We'll make an excuse. We'll get out of here." And, like half an hour, we'll see if he's a weirdo. We were there for like 3.5 hours. So, Bill, you're my new old friend. And thank you for indulging me and coming on the show. We're going to talk about Roger Rabbit. We're going to talk about all the great things you did working at Disney as an animator and all that. And welcome in, Bill Frake.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to tell the audience?
Yeah, thank you very much for both you guys for what your careers are. I mean, you are legends on the way. You guys are coming up and doing stuff that I am so impressed with. That's the reason why I contacted Gabe. I mean, Gabe, it was just like, what the heck? This is like amazing. So anybody who's doing this stuff now has got a super challenge because you got more competition than just the subject matter, right? And you guys are really nailing it, taking it out of the ballpark. And I'm looking at just the tools now that you guys can just kind of rip a lot of stuff out faster than the old guys. And I'm like, man, and you're doing it quick, you're doing it good. And I'm totally impressed by, all the technology coming in. I mean, I'm dealing with this stuff too, but it's just you guys are right on top. The spearhead.
Well, as someone who's dreamed of being an illustrator and a storyteller since I was a little boy, and I've achieved that, hearing a compliment from someone like you, who is many decades my senior, not to be rude, but you are my senior. That's humbling to hear you appreciate my work. My favorite comic book artist when I was 12 or 13 was Jim Lee. And he's the one who ended up hiring me personally at DC Comics in my 20s. And the thought of like my favorite artist when I was in middle school thinks I'm good enough to do this.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. So I feel the same way as a man who animated the Iron Giant and Ice Age and Roger Rabbit thinks I'm good enough to do this. It's humbling. I really am honored. So thank you.
I'm definitely impressed, and it's to me, it's everything you do when it's done becomes history, and you never know where that history is going to go. Some of the things you think are, just something I worked on or whatever turns out, like the Iron Giant turned out to be a classic film that, we just had a bunch of guys get together and just crank. And it was like, it was one of the things, it didn't even have advertising when it came out. It was literally like, what, Brad Bird, everybody was like, what happened? And then 30 years later, it's like, this is what happened. People admire it. They look at it. They talk about how everybody's watching every film that you showed in the beginning of this project. Project, your stuff here represented a period where we grew up in, right? And we literally, that was our reference point, that kind of stuff. And to look at flight sequences and battle sequences, and one of the biggest problems there was no technology. There was no computers. There was no, it was just, now this Iron Giant setup that you got there, that was basically almost very similar like Roger Rabbit. So I was so glad to do Roger Rabbit, because Roger Rabbit basically was animation over top live action. Okay, this one was computer animation over top of 2D animation. And what it is we had to animate the Iron Giant. Literally, it was a wireframe character, right? And one tone. But what happened was we had to put the ground plane on. So when you animated the giant, you had to lock down your storyboard. You could not change the camera, right? If you want to move them, you had to decide all that before. And when the Iron Giant was animated, that was the God mode. That was basically everything had to tie to where his foot was. So you did a grid plane like in Maya. You do a square grid plane, and that character, the Iron Giant, would run through there. And then you'd have to animate the other characters like Hogarth and Dean and some of those guys to match that floor grid, but you could not change it. So you had to, like in the early part of Disney's, when I was working with a lot of the old timers, basically, and you're going to send it to camera, and if you can't do it the first time, they're going to look at you and say, "Aren't you good? What the heck are you doing?" And then you send it again for a test that didn't work, and if this guy doesn't know what he's doing, they'll be very mad about shooting your stuff again on these Oxbury, the big, huge cameras. It just took too many people too much time. So you had to think about it being correct the first time. And that's the thing in Roger Rabbit. You had live action that was shot. You had robotics in there. Basically, if they had to hold a cigar or move a prop, that had to be done first. And then the animation had to track with that. So whatever is the cinematographer, basically what he would do is he would shoot the whole film like a live action picture, and then the animation would be dropped in. So he would just shoot it as if he was shooting a regular pure film, like what you were showing in the beginning of your show here. Iron Giant and Roger Rabbit were very similar, and it was kind of a thing where the Iron Giant, one of the problems with the Iron Giant, he's a vertical character on a horizontal floor plane. So how do you get a giant on a 185? It wasn't 35 millimeter because Brad wanted to go CinemaScope. He said the new TVs are coming out. I said, what TV? Like what? Now you got to remember, all the stuff you guys know did exist. So Brad's saying in the future, in a couple of years, we're going to get big screen TVs, like 34-inch TVs, like colored, massive pieces of furniture. Now they're flat, right? But he said, we're going to be the only film that's going to last through the future that's not going to be shown in CinemaScope that you can watch on these big screen TVs. So he was predicting the TV manufacturing, and our project matching that. Okay.
Wow.
Now, what happens, like in 35 millimeter film, you got to stretch it to match the film. Like Disney films in 1940s, they got to stretch. Now, when we did the Iron Giant, this right here that you're looking at, this is 35. This extra stuff here, like this. And what happens, this is a third of the film. This right here is a third of the film. That costs you 1/3 more. So the producers are like, you don't need that. That's too much money, right? Do this. And then you had to go ahead and say, no, but we have to justify how this can look.
So the aspect ratio changes the price.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, before we get too technical,
yeah.
I want to know if Jericho has any questions, but please give the audience the 5-minute break into this industry and how did you get over to Disney? If you could condense that into 5 minutes. But before we do that, Jericho, did you have anything for him right off the bat?
Bill, Mr. Frake, I should say. So many things going on. Because they're, in our living room or the movie theater, to see all the hard work after it's been done. We don't see all those things you just talked about, and I'm sure there are so many other things involved too. But one of the really cool things you said that really stood out was how the director had to think of future technology and how people are going to view this in a couple of years. Of course, if you guys are freaking out over a 34-inch TV. And like you said, I had a friend who had a big screen TV, and that thing was not just, hey, let's move the TV over here this weekend. That was a giant thing that took up the wall that it was in front of. It was huge. So the presence of mind to think of that and the pressure, and you guys obviously handled it well, but the pressure to, like you said, about to figure that out. You just make it work. This is what we do. So, and the pressure of, like you said, getting it right, because you had to film the live action first and lay the animation over it. And if you did mess it up, it was this whole production. It had to be refilmed. So that the saying pressure makes diamonds is so true. But did you know, and I like to ask this of people who have careers in entertainment, when you were doing this cartoon, when you were doing Roger Rabbit in the future, and the future generations and all these people would enjoy it too, but did you guys have an idea that this is going to be something? Like when you're in whatever talent you have, there are times where you just feel it. Maybe an athlete, a basketball player, Steph Curry, he's just knocking him down. He can't miss. The quarterback, he just can't miss the throws. All that. Man, we're really on to something here.
Well, I had left Disney after they had a strike. I tried all the major studios out there. So I went to all the different studios to freelance, do different things. So I left, and a lot of people, Tim Burton, everybody was leaving Disney studios. It was kind of drying up. The old guys were retiring. So it was kind of the end of the industry. And what it was we ended up, so I went over to Hanna-Barbera. So it was like across there, Warner Brothers, all these different. So I was at Hanna-Barbera, and I get a phone call from Don Hahn, who was the producer on Roger Rabbit. And he said, Bill, what are you doing now? And I know he just called me in Hanna-Barbera, I'm working on Smurfs or something, right? And he said, we got a project. If you want to leave the studio there and join us, I'd love them. Like, oh man, I ain't leaving for a rabbit, right? And I'm kind of like, what's I had no idea what it was, because you cannot look at a film. You can't look at the script until you signed in. You can't look at, so it's like Walt Disney that I work with that did Jungle Book and Pinocchio and stuff. He said they had offered him that job. And I said, really? And he said, the best guy is Bill Frake. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, I just was referred by one of the top guys in the business. Whatever he said, he knows what he's talking about. I said, I'll do this, right? So I told Don, I said, well, let me see what we got going here, right? So I went back to Disney Studios, and at that time, Spielberg and Bob Zemeckis and Dean Cundy were working at it. And they just finished going Back to the Futures, and maybe that was a little after, but that was the whole crew that worked on that. Well, anyway, they showed me some stuff that Ken Ralston had done, who was head of Star Wars, and he was up at Lucas Ranch, and he became head of Sony, but they used all this technology, computer technology, to combine levels. And what we see is naturally happening now was like brand new. They would go ahead and take the dailies and come in and combine the dailies. We could see what was going on in a few. I believe this stuff is just out of this world. Sparkles and Jessica's dress and all these different things. And I'm kind of like all the tests they were running. And I'm like, this is like scary how cool this is. And I'm like, I never saw anything like this before. Now, the idea of Iron Giant wasn't even done yet. So this is combination live action animation. They were talking about Mary Poppins, and they're talking about Anchors Away with Gene Kelly and the little mouse, and how the different things. So we viewed all of the way this stuff is being combined, how stuff was combined with stuff underneath the it was like there was no like green screen was brand new. All this stuff, so they're introducing these things like, how's this work? Well, we'll figure it out. And they were so good that with the next morning, they figured it out. And Ken Ralston, I said, Ken, when this movie is done, I sent flowers to him and his wife. I said, man, one of the biggest, so for us to go, I flew my family up to work at Lucas Ranch on the combination of Toontown and all that. And we're shooting green screen in the theater. I walked over to the Star Wars sets, all the model departments. I asked for a model for something that Bob Hoskins in front of a theater.
That's Bob Zemeckis right there, director of Back to the Future, Roger Rabbit, and one of my favorites from
and all that. And Dean Cundy shot all of those. So the cinematographer, Dean Cundy, who shot all those films, also did this one. So when I'm looking at the combination of Benny the Cab, and when I just came back to Los Angeles, I rode across that bridge for the first park, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm looking at it. And it's like, well, this is where that we shot, that stuff was shot. Bob shot this, the tunnel and all this other stuff was shot around there with the 1940s. And it was just one of the greatest experiences of meeting some of the top talent in the industry, and how kind, how everybody was sharing. It was like, it was no hold bars. It was kind of a thing where if somebody wanted to do something and a director, Bob Zemeckis, said, let's go with this, it would be achieved, right? So it was like everybody was like a superhero. But you had talents you didn't even know you had, because when something started to occur, you pulled everything you had in your abilities and make it look at what it did on visuals. And Dean Cundy in this picture right here is on the left-hand side. And that basically, that's a rubber rabbit right there he's holding on to. That was about a 4-foot rabbit. And one of the problems that you had in this film, and it's in every animated film or any film, is eye contact. And what it was is when Bob Hoskins had to act, he was acting to nothing. Mm-hmm. So he had to have eye contact. They put little dots up, or they'd have it where he had to look to do his performance. And he said after, he told me, we had lunch all the time on the set. But anyway, he said when he started, after 2 years of doing this, he started, now this is going to be crazy, he started to see like Harvey the Rabbit. He started to see rabbits because he was so convinced that what he was doing, he was in a psychotic viewing of like believing this rabbit's ear so much to strangle the rabbit, to pull his head, that he literally, all this robotics and stuff that they had in there was covered up later, and robot stuff was basically done by Star Wars guys, right? And the puppetries and all of the stuff that literally they have monitors down below, like the Muppets. They could watch what we're doing above there. So they're watching a camera on a TV set on the bottom, so they get the same shot. And all these little TV sets are playing around. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on, Bill. I thought that was an interesting thing you said. I didn't know that. I think the audience probably didn't know. The Muppets, you see what it looks like? I didn't know that. That's brilliant. It's so simple, but of course, that way you know what your Muppets are doing to each other. Oh, so in Roger Rabbit, the puppeteers, they kind of did the same thing, huh?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the stuff. This is the first time I saw that. You're hearing about the first time. When I saw this for the first time, I'm like conforming to it, and they were doing things that was I'm mixing. Now you can take on Photoshop and you can slide the bar up and down, fade something on and off, right? Well, that was like brand new. That never happened. So he said, let me try something here, Ken Ralston. And I could do that when I was doing Toontown. I could fade Bob in and out where he was standing on the set. And then we'd mark out, okay, there's a trash can over here. There's this over here. You're going to jump through this window or whatever it's going to be. And he had to have marks that he was hitting, but there's nothing on the sound stage. It's just green screen. So when it came to the Artie, he's like, I don't know what's going on here. All I see is Bob standing with a on the screen. Is this a close-up? I can't get my hookups working, right? So I had to go down and say, no, I had all my thumbnails, my little sketches, and said this. So I'm describing him how the shots were taking place. And once he did screen, then that green screen cut came together. They would hand it over to the animators. You'd start doing backgrounds because it was locked, right? You do backgrounds and start putting characters on top. But everything had to go to the perspective of Bob Hoskins. So everything had a tie. He was like the Iron Giant. He was a perspective of what was going on. And everything had to tie to his eye level, the perspective up and down. So we're working in like 25 things at once when we're doing this, and you can't be wrong, right? So you make a mistake, there's like 50 people that back you up. They got to turn the train real quick again. So everything.
Can I ask? So this sounds incredibly precise, incredibly difficult. And I worked in comic books, which are nowhere near as difficult as animation. But I worked for Disney, Warner's, and all that. And I've only seen people be fired 2 or 3 times. You don't have to name names. We're not here to embarrass anyone. But did anyone wash out from this? Like it was so difficult and taxing, and someone maybe quit. Like, hey, I'm going to go to a different project, or they got canned. If you don't want to talk about that,
no, there's quite a few stories of that. Now the sink scene with Bob Hoskins trying to get the gun away from Roger, right? Okay, Andrea Deja did that one. Top animator. He was the best at Disney. He animated that and put his love, his heart, everything into it, and it was gorgeous. And the water's flying, these water out, all this stuff was done, and it was probably 16, maybe 2-3 minutes or 4 or 5 minutes of it. It was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
This one, right? So what happened was Bob again was shooting this like Bob Zemeckis was shooting this like live action. This section doesn't work in the film. Okay. Now, if you shoot live action with A, B, and C units, and it doesn't work, you just cut the film and you put it somewhere else, right? You put it in the editing base, right? You just where I want to pull it out of the files. Well, when you draw stuff and put your heart into it for almost like 6 months and say we don't need this, he was like, no. He said, I'm going to lose an animator.
Really?
I'm going to lose my top animator. Wow. He is going to quit if this isn't back in the film.
It's a brilliant
Yeah.
scene, by the way.
Yeah.
The Weasel Gang. They're trying to get Roger, and Bob has Roger Rabbit under the dirty sink water where he's doing his dirty sock laundry.
Right. So that's just
yeah,
one
it's a
of it,
great
because it takes so long to do this. It's like it's just like taking all your artwork for half a year and say, "Nah, I changed my mind."
Yeah.
And you know, and someone who was an artist would say, "Well, you got paid," and it's like
That's what it is.
That's not what this is about, dude. This is
It was,
yeah.
and so when I heard that from Andreas, it's like, man, oh, and I heard that story through the back line, and I'm like, oh man, I could see how that works. But I've had so many things where you do entire sequences and they're cut out because it doesn't work. Now, the trick to that, there should be no problems, because you should be able to storyboard everything perfectly and make no mistakes. But because you maybe a month and a half. Well, with animation, 2 years, you can change your mind. You see a movie, all of a sudden you want to rechange it. You can morph a movie throughout 2.5 years, and stuff is in and out and in and out. And the stuff, the production, the finance people is like, like, hey man, we're wasting so much money here. And it's just you're on a Roger Rabbit ride is what this whole thing was.
Something out of everything you just said, two things really stuck out to me. Number one, you said you went from Disney to Hanna-Barbera. That's a crazy to Hanna-Barbera. I mean, the list of characters from that is crazy, and that you went to Lucas Ranch. That's especially Gabe. Being a huge Star Wars fan, I'm sure he would have liked to tag along for that one. But my question is, where does, as an animator, where does your worry stop? And by what I mean by that is, as a director or an actor or producer, they're worried about the film from beginning to end and how it's perceived, tickets, budget, and everything like that. But as an animator, does your quote unquote worry about the project and your how much you're invested in it, how does that go as far? Are you as concerned with movie ticket sales and how it performs, or once the project is done and they wrap, that's where it ends for you? Like you're happy with your work, whatever it makes and everything, that's cool. But kind of where does your worry stop on that whole, process?
The one thing is, and I've learned it, Cary Grant once said, he was at the Academy of Motion Pictures, and he was talking about, we go to films to be entertained and to have our emotions changed. And when you do something, and you do, I always think about what the viewer is looking at. I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the viewer. So I'm doing it to where, will the person who watches this like this? It's not my work. It was this one scene that I'm working on. Is that going to make somebody cry? Is that going to give them the emotion and power that this film story point has to make, right? And a lot of it is all in not so much performance as it is to an animate object, and make somebody, you pull their emotions out of a person, because it's just a bunch of drones that move. So when you realize, when you leave the theater, there was really nothing there. It was flat, right? So to be able to make somebody feel emotion and cry and is really what my thing is. If I can't pull that off, I haven't done my job for the project. Now, if everybody does that, it's automatically, and if the story gets tighter and tighter, that is going to win an Oscar. I mean, I'm not saying because it's going to win an Oscar, but what it is use every power. You use camera,
right.
You use facial expressions, all this stuff. And so I don't want to let the audience down, right? It's not the producers, not stuff. I'm working for the audience. Even I'm getting paid by the companies. I'm like, these people have to put 3 screaming kids in a car with pizza on a rainy day and bring them to a theater. If it sucks, man, that poor. So you want to make it the best experience that somebody can have, that when they leave that theater, they're talking about it. They're talking about it for years, like you did with Roger Rabbit stuff for Star Wars.
Yeah.
You're basically, you're so far in that movie, you're still talking about it. That's a great movie.
Bill, I got a question for you. Advice for people in the audience. Remind me that I want to ask you next, but I want to talk about something really quick that relates to what you're saying about touching people. I worked on so many thousands and thousands of comic book pages for DC and Marvel and Image and Dark Horse. I worked forever. I do my own independent comics now. There's one book. There are many books people bring to me to autograph when I'm at a comic book fill-in issue. Sometimes they'll just do a standalone story. It's not part of the larger thing. And it was the Justice League goes to a children's cancer hospital, and they play games with the kids all day long. And here's my artwork in it. I worked on this, and and these kids are terminal. That's the undercurrent of the story, and they have a great time. It's hide and seek and running around and all this fun, beautiful day. Superman takes them and he etches their names into eternity on these rocks because they're gonna die. These kids, and blah blah blah, and they reprint this comic to this day. And they give it away to charities and cancer awards for children. People bring me this book at Comic-Con crying, wanting my autograph, like the daughter had the thing. And like when you do your art right and you reach right into someone's soul and someone's heart, it's humbling. It's such a gift to be able to make stories that like affirm life and inspire and just put a smile and thrill people. And when you do it right, you don't care about the money and the sales and all that. You do, but in that moment, you don't. You're like, I did something humbling. I did something for a person. Like I loved a person with my art. To me, that's the best stuff. I love when I see someone bring this to my table.
I went to those places. I went to those places to cheer the kids up. And another thing, I worked with the New York Fire Department for 20 years. And I was doing ambulance, fire, all that stuff. But whenever we got merchandise, they nicknamed me Hollywood. Right? So whenever I got merchandise at the end of every movie, I brought it into the ambulance and left it with little stuffed dolls. So when the kids got all upset, you could hand them one of the dolls from the film, and I could literally cheer them up when we had a fire. And we go into the drywall melts, and what it does is it gets wet and it just comes down like clay. Then there's bookshelves. You see how people live because you're hosing their house up, right? So you're blowing windows out, you're breaking doors down, you're tearing somebody's house. It's just their personal everything, and it's like, don't worry about, put the fire out, don't worry about their personal stuff. Well, the guy said, hey, Hollywood, every time, come over here. And I said, what? They go in a TV room and all my movies are laying on the floor. And I realized that these kids had seen Ice Age, they had seen Robots, they had seen all these different films, Fantasia, they'd seen. I'm looking at everything I did, cheered them up, right, before this fire happened. And it's crazy to see. They're like, everybody would always call me in and say, hey, Bill, look, did you work in this movie? And we have a few seconds, but it was like, you didn't realize how important all the stuff you did, because you don't go into people's houses and see stuff, but you realize the impact that our industry does with comics. Look at it, it's like, what I do has an impact on these children's lives. And you go back to work and you're really fired up to do the best you can.
Hell yeah. I love that. Speaking of that, did you have a question? Because I had another one. I'll keep going. I won't let you in if you don't stop me. So
no, what you just said, that I really can connect with that, because this movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, it was something that we could all watch together.
Yeah.
There was something in there for my parents as well. I'd hear them laugh occasionally. Usually the stuff that went over our heads, like now, is toward the end. And this speaks to what you were saying earlier, how Bob had to act to nothing. This was right I can't stress that enough. Now, CGI, I was thinking about this when I was driving home today. CGI is just part of the game now. It used to be the genesis of CGI. You can go all the way back to Jason and the Argonauts, or Clash of the Titans, that stop motion and the owl and all that kind of stuff.
We studied that with Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah, that kind of begat this, and this begat what now, these huge, the Marvel movies and the action kind of action and adventure.
A Doritos commercial has CGI in it.
It's everything everywhere. AI, I mean, it's just part of our world now, and we don't bat an eye at it. And now it's so good that you probably really can't tell what's CGI. But this, and as a kid watching this, I couldn't tell. I mean, yeah, of course I knew that these cartoons really didn't live with real people, but this looked great. This was amazing. This was cutting edge. At the time, toward the end, when he's fighting the Toons, spoiler alert, if no one's ever seen this movie, shame on you. But toward the end, when he's fighting the Toons and he's fighting, don't tell me, Christopher Lloyd's character,
Judge Doom.
Oh man, what a great character Judge Doom was. But he's fighting the Toons, and then the one, I guess you would say he's the leader of the little rat gang. And that little gang was, you've seen that going back to the Hanna-Barbera and the Warner. Yeah, boss. Yeah, get him, boss. And he was the leader. And so Eddie the character Eddie Valiant, he's singing the song, and he says, "I'm bouncing off." I can't remember. He says, "I'm bouncing off of something," and the rat goes, "That don't rhyme with walls." And he goes, "No, but this does." And he kicks him. So as a kid, I just thought it was funny that he kicked that rat in his balls, but I didn't really get to where he's saying that don't rhyme with walls, but what he was going to say was balls. And he goes, "That don't rhyme with walls." And then he kicks him like so hard in the balls that he like flies out the window, like, very cartoonish. And then also, in 1988, so I was 8 years old. I was a little kid, prepubescent and all that stuff. I didn't know why I liked Jessica Rabbit, but I knew I liked Jessica Rabbit. And now I understand why, but again, that it had something for everybody. Like I just said, the whole habit that went over my head, but not my parents. And maybe some of the stuff, the more kiddie, like silly stuff.
Well, when everybody was jealous when Bob Zemeckis would leave California and go to New York to seek, right? And I'm like, everybody was like, "Can we go with you?" No, I got to go by myself, and all this stuff, right? But it was, after Romance in the Stone, everybody knew everybody. So it was kind of Dean Cundy, like I said, everybody was friends with everybody. So it was everybody looks like superstars. We were just all friends, and an idea, and just like a friend says, "Oh, that's great, let's do it," right? It wasn't like, let's go through the committee. This was running too fast to go through a committee. So the decision was made, it was done, it was executed and put on the film. It was real fast. So yeah, you're on a fast speed the whole time.
So is that who?
I think that's better. Sorry, Jerk. I think that's better as someone that's made a lot of art and comic books. There's not too much overthinking. Yep. Not too many cooks in the kitchen. Like fast and dirty, turn and burn, get it done. We're pros. We know what we're doing. Let us do it.
Is that
what happened? The residuals, like every character that comes to a different studio had to be financed by that studio. These weren't all owned by Disney, right? So when Bugs Bunny, that had to have equal screen time, right? You had to pay residuals.
You'll notice, Bugs Bunny
and Disney wanted residuals. So if we decided to put Porky Pig in there, Warner Brothers would have to get paid. So we got a cartoon budget of which ones we can use, and we're like at a limit, right? So it's like, no, we can't put that character, even though the animator thinks it's funny, we can't put a cartoon budget like that. But after a while, we only could use the characters for so long. It's like it was like real actors. Okay, when you pay real actors on screen time, that's exactly the way this is treated.
Wow.
So, is Jessica Rabbit modeled after Kathleen Turner?
Yeah.
And who drew Jessica Rabbit?
That was Richard Williams, drew the first one. Now, Dick Purdom and Jill Purdom animated a lot of that. And basically, Ken Ralston did the sparkles. Now, that's Star Wars. That dress was Star Wars.
Wow.
Star filters and stuff, again, to get that sparkle. But then again, also, they had to diffuse the edge of it to make it work in the round because it was a flat plate. And they had to make it work in the round. You couldn't curve it like you can now in CG. You can pull points and bring it around. It was flat, and then they had to tone it to give that. There's another layer of tone. See the tone under the chest and the side by the torso by her rib cage. That had to be another layer of tone. So she may have 7 different layers on her.
Wow.
Not just,
It was very important
Yes.
to get the roundness of her figure.
Most
I
important.
remember I was probably 10 when this movie came out. And you know how you are, Bill Jericho. It
Yeah.
happens to you. But the first time you see a woman and you don't go, ugh, it happens. I remember the first time it happened to me. I was 7 years old in my grandparents' like living room, TV room, and for whatever reason, Carrie Fisher was on TV dressed as Princess Leia. I don't know what it was, but I was like mesmerized all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And the same when I saw Jessica Rabbit. We were at the department store last summer, so we came out with her, and they had little PVC vinyl whatever figure of Jessica and all the characters. And I asked my grandma if I could get Roger Rabbit, and she's like, "Oh, sure, I'll get it." And then I was looking at the Jessica Rabbit one. She's like, "You want the shapy lady, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She got me that one.
When Preston Blair did the hippos, he gets in this thing, but he did Fantasia with the alligators and was going up to how to draw comics. He did it in the 60s or 50s. But anyway, Preston Blair did Red Hot Riding Hood, and it's inside that book. So Jessica is the second generation upscale Red Hot Riding Hood with the wolf that goes,
nice upgrades. I remember that cartoon. The City Wolf comes out there and he goes and she's performing and he's like, smashes his head with a mallet, and like you said, howling and all that stuff. That stuff, man, those cartoons were so awesome.
And everybody's saying you can do anything you want. It's so kind of restricted now. It's like we went to another level and it's backwards. It's like, whoa, can't do that.
Well, let's talk about that. When we were at lunch, you camped at Disneyland in Anaheim, California, for those of you that don't know. And it's at the north end of the park. It's for little kids. Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse have their houses there. There's a great ride there, the Roger Rabbit ride. And in that ride, it takes cues from the movie. You sit in the car, that taxi cab. What's his name? I want to call him Eddie.
Benny the Cab.
Benny the Cab. You sit in the cab. You go through blah blah blah. For years, Bill, this is a Weasel Boys or whatever. And
yes,
Farla, I'm convinced that the people that hate women are ugly feminist women. They hate beautiful women, right? Because they're jealous. Because they're 700 pounds of blue hair. So this is what they did to the. That's there. If you go to Disneyland tonight, they're open till midnight.
That's changed
right now. She's in a yellow trench coat.
Yeah. I mean, like Mark Davis did this great stuff on Pirates of the Caribbean. They had the pirates chasing the lady and ripped her out, and then all this stuff is like. It's art. Why would you go into a museum and change something like a painting because you don't like it, and then rehang it up? And it doesn't make any sense, And everybody's like, Well, if you hadn't seen a movie, then it's like, okay, it's just a lady with a hammer or whatever. I don't know. I get my own feelings on that. It's just like you, man. I think it's whatever impacted somebody, leave it in there.
Right. Leave it alone.
It's
The ugly, the moral scolds, you weirdo, blue-haired, green-haired people. Nobody asked you. Knock it off. Nobody asked you, people. Leave it alone.
Yeah, the Jessica Rabbit, she was, aside from obvious reasons, but it's not only the way she looked, but what she represented. She represented a woman. She represented the sensuality of, because she was one way. You take the club performance scene. That's the why don't you come and see me sometime, boys? The kind of Jessica Rabbit. But when she's with Roger, she's very loving. She's very caring. Oh, Roger, come here, sweetheart. So it was more than just the way the feminine. I'm just drawn that way.
Bad, I'm just drawn that way. That's the best line in the movie.
But
I'm not bad. I'm just.
She just represented that sensuality, and like in that scene, juxtaposed against the modesty of a woman. That when she's not in this performance mode, that the women didn't normally dress like that. That's what made her stand out. That's what made her so special in the package.
Well, real quick, that actor, the performance of that guy had to perform looking at her not on the stage, right? She doesn't exist until later. Bob Zemeckis say, okay, Jessica is going to come up, put her hand on your face, and she's going to slide a scarf over you and do not act like this is, and whatever this guy's performance is, Bob Zemeckis knows what he wants to see in the performance of Jessica. So what he does is he gets the best performance that he's seeing Jessica more over to the left do stuff because he knows what he wants to have in the animation performance. So he gets this guy to act, and when we get this, there's no Jessica. It's just a guy acting with nobody there. Now, there is no frames because it's all digital, right? So at 24 frames a second, you got to know, okay, at this point, she has to have her hand there. At this point, and it almost keys itself. It's almost like you have to be at certain spots. Man, we were just breaking our heads with this stuff, but it worked.
And you said Richard Williams, who people who don't know art and animation don't know who he is, but everyone in our business who knows art and animation knows who he is. He is one of the legendary animators. He had a passion project called The Thief and the Cobbler. And there's a sequence with the evil wizard doing 52 playing cards and shuffling them. Guys, this was drawn and inked and colored by hand. Zero CGI. This is not done with 3D models and all that. And this guy has 6 fingers. Each finger has like 3 or 4 knuckles. He has all these rings, and he's riffling these cards. Watch, this is insane.
Let me say before you start, the animation on this. Okay, you get 35. You get CinemaScope. The animation on that card sequence, right? It's like 24 inches across, right? Now see that it's beyond CinemaScope. That is a piece of cell that's huge. And what happens if it's done in ink, right? Hand ink, and all you do is put a little ding in that, like a little crimp, and it's called Newton rings. What it does is it gives a little sparkle that basically it didn't happen, and you had to reshoot the whole thing. So you cannot crimp it. It's like when you laid those cells down, they had to be laid down with 2 people, and nobody could bend them. It's a real art form of just shooting this scene, not even how it's animated. Grim Natwick did this one.
Let's see this.
Snow White.
Yeah, this is just a few seconds. I'm going to move forward a little bit so we don't get too much copyright nonsense.
Yeah, it's probably Richard too. I mean, yeah.
Here we go. Check this out.
Like playing cards, and I control the depths.
Now, you guys don't draw for a living like I do and Bill. I would never want to do that. I would want to have accomplishment, but that, like, to draw those cards, like what are we talking? Like, how long would that take, Bill? What do you estimate with all your decades of experience? What would that take?
And actually, what it was is Richard Williams would go over every scene in the movie and tweak it. So he might have animated that. That might have been animated by one guy in the beginning. It might have been Ken here. I think it's Grim Network. And basically, so Richard would go over and change the timing and stuff later. So this stuff, because he had it, he would look at it and think about him on it. His film was 35 years, 40 years to do.
Yeah, he never completed it. You can watch versions of it. People have cobbled together different stuff. Much of it is done. It doesn't seem real when I look at it. Like, how could someone think like this and animate and these angles in the 3D without computers? We're moving the camera around objects and rooms and people, and it's not being done with computers. It's really.
He won Oscars for Charge of the Light Brigade. He won Oscars. So when he was cast to do Roger Rabbit, it was Oscar-winning director of animation. Right. So that's what gave him the job. He had done stuff that was so that he was based over London in Soho. I've been over there visiting with Eric Goldberg, and everybody that was there, I got a chance to see them, and they had all the Oxbury cameras. It was like Disney Studios in one line.
That scene there, like you were saying in the club scene, the guy had to act. It sounds like you guys really, like the director really had to direct because he had the vision that not everybody could see. You know, he knew what it looked like in his mind, so he knew how to direct that guy. Turn this way, turn that way. The actors really had to act because they had no acting partner in those scenes. So they had the director's direction, and then you guys having to animate everything and you know, make sure, like you said, reading, okay, so her hand at this point, her hand needs to be here. At this point, it needs to be there. So you guys really had to lean on your skills, and not that it doesn't take skill to be excellent in today's, you know, movie making and animation and stuff like that, but definitely you guys really had to rely on old school skills of actually doing it. Not, well, we can just get a program and, like you said, fade this out, fade that in. It's definitely easy to have you guys lean on your skill set in this. I mean, it shows in everything. I can't think of, even from the very beginning when it was all animation with the baby, you know, and he was in the kitchen, that whole scene, and, you know, him barely missing danger and knives falling and stuff like that, and he's trying to get his bottle. I mean, there's not a scene in that movie that is not awesome, and I think that's because of all the talent that had to be poured into it. Like this, Christopher Lloyd was so new. Now with CGI, that's a part of it. Actors know how to act with it. And you could see it. You look at the mid-90s, like that movie Mortal Kombat. That was like, you know, the infancy stage of the CGI we have now. So you can tell in some scenes that they weren't really used to that. Now it's automatic. So to have this level of performance with, you know, this being such a new process, some of the characters were animated. It was just like real characters. You really felt bad for Roger Rabbit, you know, and the tunes that he would put in the dip, you know, he was a real bad guy.
Yeah, we would get briefings that in the scene, Roger is really sad. Roger, his brother was just killed. It was by a safe, and he's gone in with the motivation of the characters. Mm-hmm. We were directed, just like by Bob Zemeckis, directed on what the characters were feeling with the character you were working with. So after Bob directed that guy on the stage there, he would go ahead and now do a double directing. He would direct Jessica's animation as a performance level to go with that guy. So he would say, okay, this is, I want him to do this. And so you had two, Bob was like, man, it was like superhero he was.
Like his brain was split into two different compartments. And, you know, artists, you know, you guys who draw, I think directors might be a bit else to convey their vision. Whereas somebody who draws, you can convey your vision much better. You're not relying on somebody. You're not tweaking, okay, stand here, do this, more emotion, less emotion. Your brain tells your hand, make what's in my mind. And I think that's so cool. And I've always been a bit envious myself. I have my brother. He's a really good artist as well. And it was just, and of course, like, you know, 3 years old, knowing how to make a souffle. So you have to work on it. But there is some natural talent that comes with drawing. And I've always thought it was, because it's unlike any other art form, like maybe food, where you can control, you have direct control over how your art is presented, because you can make that happen yourself, and you don't have to have kind of like a middleman, like an actor or something like that.
Well, like you're saying with the chef, it's muscle memory, right? What it is they know what they want to make in their head, and they're just grabbing. You're basically, it's like we're doing EMS. Basically, you get all this paperwork, but you got to be street smart. So the thing is, this paperwork, college kids can learn how this stuff works, and, you know, medically and all this stuff. It's when you're on the street, and you got to just, now, whatever you learn, all that paper is going to disappear, and you're just doing it, right? It kicks in. So you have to have, the tool has to be second nature and so intuitive that when somebody says something, you can rip it. You can just do it. People are struggling with trying to learn how to draw, You got to get way past that to where that is not even involved. It's your mind working with somebody.
Right. You don't want to be thinking about anatomy and what muscle goes here and perspective and how do I do a position, rule of thirds. You don't want to be, it has to be instinct. That only comes from thousands and thousands of hours of repetition. There's the concept of epistemological knowledge and then technical knowledge. Epistemological knowledge is book knowledge. Anyone can get it that easy. You read a book and understand the book. Doesn't mean you can do it. I could read Peyton Manning's Guide to Football. I could memorize it. Put me on the football field. I'm good for 4 interceptions in the first quarter if I do that. If I've never practiced football, no, unless you really did it. You don't.
So that 4 interceptions is that you got 2 yards to go to goal? No, I'm just
maybe I'm gambling like that. Like the NBA is just all gambling now, I guess. So, but yeah. So that's one thing. So Jericho said it, and then I interviewed you the other day, and some big man comic plans. But I wanted to commiserate with one of my brethren in the arts, and I asked Bill. One thing that's always frustrated me as an artist is, like, for whatever, and I think because art is emotional, getting your taxes done does not touch you the way a story does. You know, getting your hair cut doesn't touch you. Like, there's all these other jobs, they don't touch you like the arts, because the arts go directly to the subconscious, the emotional part of the brain and the spirit and the mind and all that. And everyone who isn't an artist thinks that we got this skill for free, and it's a little insulting, but I have patience because they don't know, because they haven't lived it. But Bill, I asked you, do people tell you, oh man, you're so lucky, you're of the thousands and thousands of hours? And I asked you, do you run into people like that? And you said all of them.
All of them. But you can give somebody, you know, what's crazy, you asked a small child that's 5 years old, draw me a picture. They can just sit down and rip.
Right.
It's when you get all this other information as an adult in your head, and then you can't take it, and then you lose it, and then you have to find it. Yeah, that's
it's
what
beat
it
out
is.
of people.
Yeah.
It's beat out of children. And I feel sorry because it's so rewarding to make. We were talking earlier about give them the toys and things like that to cheer them up. And I was talking about the cancer patients that bring me that special issue of Superman that they keep reprinting it over a decade now to give away. And when I listen, I talk about the Beach Boys a lot. You'll find that out the more you talk to me. When I listen to Brian Wilson, and I listen like
my daughter designs their shirts.
You told me that. Oh, I love that there's a Beach Boy connection there. When I listened to the vocals for God Only Knows, the acapella, and I felt like I was being brought to tears.
Wow.
Like I want to make artwork that is that beautiful. That just reaches inside of people and loves them and touches them. And it isn't free to know time and vacations and things because you're bent over a drawing board for I think most of your life when you do this.
Yeah.
Well, I think to play devil's advocate, those of us who can't draw very well, I think they kind of fall into the same trap as people who might look at social media, Instagram, and just see the highlights. Right. They just see your comic books and they see your resume. They don't see the thousands of balled up pieces of paper in the waste bin. They don't see, the 100 times you've broken something over your knee, sharpening your skill. But I think with skills that are tangible, where you can say, look, this is what my talent is, and show them this beautiful piece of, this beautiful picture or portrait or whatever. I think that what those of us who don't have, skills that you can see like that is people who do have that talent. I think you're kind of given, I don't know, a passion for something, whether it's going to be drawing, whether it's going to, I have a really good friend of mine who mechanics is his thing. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how small it is or how large it is. So I think maybe artists, you guys were given a talent, a thirst for that. And of course you had to put in the hours to sharpen those skills, to sharpen that knife. But I think maybe you were given a piece of steel that was already.
My position on this. I will now, and I mean this, when someone says that it's a talent and it's so amazing, I'm not going to take that as an insult and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take it as the grandest compliment of all time, because what that is telling me is my artwork is so amazing that it looks effortless. So instead of taking it as the insult of you didn't work your whole life to draw, they're not saying that.
No, I don't think so at all.
I make the art so good it looks effortless. That's
well, look at pro football, NFL, the summer camps, all these guys. If you went down, but pushing sleds, running down and timing, and using computers to say, okay, move your ankle this way, go fat, back, right? They're doing this stuff. When they get on the field, they just run out. The quarterback calls, the call, off he runs, grabs the ball, and that's it. You don't see that backstory of all like 3.5 months sweating at the sun in Florida or Texas or something. And then if somebody makes a mistake, they did all that work and training and they make a stupid mistake, or they injure themselves or do it's like us too. It's like if we have to train like that every day, right? We don't train 3 months and then we go and play a couple games and then we take off 6 months. It's funny, like with like the Academy Motion Pictures. I'm not doing the Oscar stuff now, and you watch films, you get scripts, you do, but this is the time of year everybody finishes up their projects so you can talk to people. You can do what we're doing. Otherwise, you're behind the desk. You can't talk to nobody. So when you're in the middle of a project,
Here's how hard it is to draw sometimes. I drew for about 6 hours today at my desk. You know what I got out of it? And I worked. I got that pose right there out of my 6 hours today. I drew a different version. This is a cover for the Unstoppable Tyrus comic book. I'm just drawing it on paper to lay it out. But that's what I got out of 6 hours today. Now, I drew a lot more, but I hated all of it. And that's the stuff you guys never see. Now, when you see this cover finish, it's going to blow your face off. You guys are going to love it. But what you don't know is that it took me a week. And then, I had to take my granddaughter here because she was crying at lunchtime, and I had to do this, I had to do that. And I'm crumpling up paper and getting furious. And, for 6 hours, I drew one pose. It's like badass pose with a ton of energy in it. That's a great pose right there. He's
yeah.
The arms like, it's okay, but it's funny, and the arm is weird, and this and that. And this is what you guys don't see.
Well, this is like when I started comics for 10 cents, right? You get a comic and candy bar for under a quarter back that day, and then it was 12 cents, 15. But you didn't realize that was still a lot of money back then. And if somebody's doing getting a graphic novel and somebody said, that's $7. You know how much effort you put in for $7? You worked really hard to have that thing. That thing should be worth $100.
Right.
The sweat you put into that thing. But nobody sees the impact that you're hidden. And like one of the guys, when I was doing background to Walt Disney, Don Griffith, I said, look, I want to learn how to do backgrounds and layouts like Jungle Book and all this stuff. And he said, well, what you're doing is you're an animator. You're up front. They're looking at your performances. When you do a background, you don't exist. And if you try and upstage take full center screen, and sometimes it's just a color card, right? It's not like you're doing all this fancy background and different things. But a presentation piece, okay, you can play with it. But it just becomes like it just becomes a lot of disappearing act, right? That there's so many people doing this stuff, you don't know who did what.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about passion is you don't realize that you're working on it when you're doing it. Like when you guys are drawing, I'm sure you don't look at it as another board or another page, or even over the years, you love it. So the work you're doing and the pieces of paper that you're crumbling and throwing, you're not seeing it that way. You're just doing it. And like myself, over the years, making jokes and being funny and learning what funny is, learning the timing of being funny, because everything's not funny all the time. Learning that there's a window on being funny. You can't it's not funny anymore. So doing those things and doing videos and interviewing people and being on the radio and all these other things, trying bits, writing bits, reading them the next day, what the hell was that? All these other things, it gets you to a point where, I'll do a video and somebody say, oh man, that looks so easy. You did that in 15 minutes, or that was times that it wasn't funny. All the times that it wasn't good, all the stuff that I scrapped and all the things that I've tried didn't work. But at the time when you're doing that, you don't see it as work. You don't see it as sharpening your skills. You're just, doing something that you love to do, something that you're passionate about. And then kind of one day you stick your head up out of the grist for a living. I'm working for major companies. So getting to the point where you are great at something, it's almost like you've ever seen that movie, The Fifth Element, where they fly to another planet and they put them in sleep pods, where they lay in these pods and go to sleep and they wake up and they're there. Or like when you're a kid, you fall asleep in the car, we're already home, you kind of slept through the journey. So your head's down and you're working on it, but you don't see it as a journey. You're just, doing something you're passionate about. And then, oh shoot, we're here. We have accolades. I have, I'm at the Lucas Ranch. I'm having lunch with Bob Hoskins. Like kind of when you're there, it's kind of cool. But certainly for people who aren't good at drawing, please don't ever take that as an insult if somebody says, even if they sound like they're being an asshole, oh, it's so easy.
I realized, see that right there. Once you said that, like 5-10 minutes ago, I realized, and I always it was a bad attitude on my part. Like, they're trying to compliment you. You may struggle all day to get the composition that I wanted. That's not their problem. That's my problem. It's my job. So yeah, new attitude for me. I believe in life. Attitude is everything. But thank you for illuminating me and opening my eyes on that. It's
like Gabe said, you were in the Navy at one time. But anyway, does something to get 1,000 people back there. You got a lot of stuff that you don't see anything, but it happens, right? And the idea is you appreciate everybody down the line, and you always do mission debrief. You always do something that basically you go back and there's nothing wrong. We succeeded, but you could have done better over here. You did this over here. That's self-inflicted. When we do our work, we're basically internally mission debriefing ourselves. You're actually, okay, I got it, and things. And it's a lot of stuff like, I talk to a lot of military guys, and the thing is, if you have a sense of humor and you're real funny and entertaining, they're not going to put you on point because they want you, when you come back to base, to cheer them up. They want you to. They're not your special gift when they come back to base. Is to bring them back, to debrief them and say, cool, man, sorry, making jokes and doing stuff. And there's a lot of slapstick humor that goes off in all the departments, all the military, Air Force, Navy, Marines, all that stuff. There's a lot of crazy, silly stuff, and sometimes that's kind of some of the stuff I look at and research, because when I need silly or some crazy stuff, I might put that in a cartoon. So I'm always looking for research of what human emotion is, because that's what humans are watching that movie, and they attach themselves to the character. And once they attach themselves to the character, they're like they're into it so much they become that character while they're watching the movie. And when you leave, these kids act like that character for decades.
Right. Yeah, I've wanted. I can't do it. So I'm gonna embarrass myself here. I can't do it. But since I was 10 years old, I've wanted to be able to go, please, Eddie. The way he does that, I can't do it.
One of probably the saddest part when Roger comes in to Eddie's office to get him to help him, and he goes to sit in the chair, and he puts his hand on the chair, and Eddie tells him, don't sit in that chair because that was his brother's chair. And then right after that, when Roger, he gets sad, he cowers down, his ears go down. As a little kid, I was sad as hell. Like, man, why are you being so mean to him? But that was one of the, before I would just see him being mean to that little silly character. Why are you doing that? Not knowing all the heaviness of that was his brother's chair. That's where his brother sat. No one sat there ever since, and how the death of his brother affected him and how it made him view the tunes. And again, as a child, not being able to understand the complexity of everything, I'm just seeing it from these tunes. They're so happy. You look at Toontown in the movie, it's sunny, it's happy, everybody's singing. How could you hate these characters? And Eddie sure did, because one of them killed his brother and turned out to be right. the judge. But man, that movie was, and then at the end where Eddie finally quits drinking and he gets the gun and he loads it up, and the fact that he's using a tuned gun,
I designed that gun,
shows his that was awesome. I loved it.
We had some regular guns down here on the soundstage, and I said, why don't we? I said, you got to do something. It was right out of where was it? But I did that when he used that big gun. That gray gun. That I did a sketch of it, and then he brought it down to the lunch, right? And They came back with it. It was all done. They had painted it. It was all done, and it was huge. And it was kind of like it was a prop gun. I'm like, man. And it was the thing where before they didn't even think of making it that cartoony, right? It was just kind of like Doom's gun, right? It was just when he runs down the alleyway, he's got a certain gun or something, you know. But it was something that they wanted to do it so we could get the to go in there, the bigger bullets, you know, with faces, right?
Yeah, those cowboy bullets.
Yeah.
Cowboy bullets.
Wasn't one of them sleeping?
Yeah.
One of them was tired. But the one where he threw the bottle up in the air, you know, does the war cry and then smashes it with the tomahawk.
Right.
And you know now, if you made that, they would say, actually, you can't do that because indigenous people, it's offensive. So you probably
right. That's it. Yeah. So I designed that gun there. That's
that thing, man, that was that part, and that was outside of that tunnel too, before he was going into Toontown.
Right.
And that whole ending scene, you know, and then when they broke open, when they had the fire hose that was spraying the dip, and you know they kept moving Roger away because he was going to hit Jessica, he was going to get sprayed with it. Every part of that movie was just awesome. I have such fond memories of it. I watched it with my kids. That's another thing. That's another thing I'm very appreciative of. When you have something like this from your childhood that has so many great memories with it, and you can pass that on to your kids, but it's still still in its original form. It hasn't been changed. It hasn't been updated. It hasn't been twisted and perverted by whatever they try to do with things now. Case in point, this right here. This is something they basically took away the two biggest reasons that this was a great, you know, piece of art in Disneyland, but that you can share that with your kids in its original form, and then watch their face light up, or watch them laugh at the same things you laughed at, the same thing that the whole family can sit down and watch even today with my wife and I. And then it adds another layer to it because now I'm the parent and I'm getting the humor that my kids aren't getting. And the cycle, the beautiful cycle, continues. So very thankful for stuff like this.
I have my favorite joke from the movie. So there's a part where Roger and Boskins, Eddie Valiant, they get the handcuffs on them together.
Yeah.
And they can't get out of these stupid handcuffs. They're in these handcuffs for like 10 minutes, get off. And Roger, just because he's a cartoon, he pulls his hand out of the handcuffs to help Bob cut the handcuffs. Bob tells him, "You mean you could have taken your hand out of the stupid handcuffs the whole time?" He's like, "Yeah, but I wanted to wait until it was funny." I thought that might
have been the scene that Andrea did, that he said, "I'm going to quit." Right? If you take this out of the scene, I think that was the one he did, and it was so that when you have extra action, all that was is just a humor moment, right? I mean, he is getting locked in on it, but when you have story to tell throughout the film, you got 65 minutes or an hour and 25 or whatever the film turns out to be, that you have story to tell. So the story is king. So you got to have them in there, you know? And that's where this is.
It worked. That was so funny. I think Dumb and Dumber had to have gotten its inspiration for the scene where they're in the snow and he's like, "My hands are freezing." And he goes, "Here, take an extra pair of these gloves." And he goes, "You had an extra pair of gloves the whole time?" And he goes, "There. You could have gotten out of these handcuffs the whole time." And he's like, "Well, yeah, duh, I'm a cartoon."
Yeah.
That had to be the inspiration for that.
Funny. It's like
the layers, the mind, again, the mind of a tune. Of course, he's going to wait until it's funny.
Yeah.
No matter what, because that's what they're here for. They're here for funny.
It's character driven. So you got to act like the real true character, right? So, you know, and you reverse the film in a sense. Well, I'll explain that later. But the thing is, the characters literally they grow through the film and get better and more interesting, right? And sometimes what they'll do is like Dean Cundy. Okay, when they did Tom Hanks when he's on the island, okay, with his coconut.
Survivor.
What they did was
what the hell's that movie called?
Castaway.
Castaway.
Castaway. Okay, so what they did was, because he had this is another way of doing this. They filmed him. He was skinny when they filmed the skinny part first and reversed it with the heavy part, because it would take in 6 months too hard for him to lose the weight. They pumped him up with food. They started him skinny and pumped up with food and reversed it. So he starts at the Federal Express guy heavy, and then he loses weight. But they flipped it so they didn't have to starve him to get the shots done. You know what I mean? It's iffy, but it physically couldn't do it in a couple of months. So they shoot the other stuff first and then cut it ahead on the other stuff.
I've always, I remember as a little kid, I realized that about if someone has a beard or a mustache later in a movie and then don't. I always realize, oh, they start filming with the beard, and then they cut it, and even if the story's out of order, because it takes.
Yeah.
But I'm going to geek out on this. I don't know how much the audience knows about it. Someone that illustrates, guys, when you look at this ear here, you look at that rim light, that light from the lamp comes up, and then it hits down here on the ear. I don't think you guys, this is the definition of making things look effortless. That is so well done. And in this scene, that light isn't holding. Let me show you something. This might be a little too inside baseball.
Ken Rolston did. That's the stuff I was telling you. He did that on Jessica's. Throughout all the characters, they were putting out shadow light.
Right. It's insane. But watch, the lamp is swinging in this room, and the light all over Roger Rabbit. This is very blurry, but if you look at his ears and different parts of him, the shadows are moving around him as if he is a 3D form and not a 2D cell. You can't see it here good. If you watch it at a higher resolution, this is terrible resolution. It's insane how those shadows are traveling around the exact way they would on a real, like
that was called the shadow level, and Ken Rolston did that stuff. Now, what that was is first it was people would draw a shadow on it, but then he was able to. I don't know how they did it. Star Wars guys, you know.
Yeah. Let's see. Because I've seen a documentary of Rush, shadow levels isolated.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen some of those, like I don't know if they were on cells or what they were. Let's see.
Yeah, they were done in line drawing, and then they're painted. A lot of the times they paint it in black, and then they diffuse the edge to it. So it was like a black.
Oh,
what it was? Complete black shapes for the shadow moving.
Right. And
then they diffuse it with a 10 or 20% diffusion, which is just what you do when you Photoshop. You slide around.
Right. So here's showing you the composite for this.
That's it.
You have Bob Hoskins with nothing in the sink. Then you have this like cut out of Roger here. And then you have a backlight. Let's see, interpositive. I don't know these terms. You know them.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, look at all this stuff that they're shadow mat. This is the shadow
now
right
you get
here.
24.
Crazy.
Now you got 24 frames a second, which means that is 100 frames per second.
Insane. It's just complete insanity.
So when you look,
it's a miracle that this exists.
You should see the numbers, guys. They're like, whoa, you know, and it's like, but they were saying, and they sat there thinking, if this fails, we're going to shut the studio down, right? I mean, it was literally, right? And the whole studio was going to close. And when it made motion picture history, it started the animation.
Right.
This is either close the shop, Jeffrey Katzenberg, or we're going to the stars, and that's what we did. We went to the stars. This opened up. This created the second golden age of animation.
Yeah, that second golden age. You correct me if I'm wrong. In my opinion, I was 11 when it started. I think with the Little Mermaid in '89. So you had the Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast. That's the second golden age of Disney.
Right.
That's a grand slam, not in the park. That's into the parking lot. All four of those movies. Holy cow! All four of those movies are amazing.
Yep. All of them. They're all. I can recall way back in my day, kids, when we had videotapes, we had VHS tapes. I remember having all of those and watching them over and over again because as a kid, the life hasn't, imagine being there, imagine Aladdin. That was probably my favorite out of those. Robin Williams at his peak,
right?
Doing the voiceovers, being the genie. I mean, that was just so awesome.
Well, Robin Williams really worked with Eric Goldberg. Rob, from what I understand, what I've seen, that he just overplay everything. He would have like 30 minutes for this one moment, and then Eric Goldberg cut it together with the bits of that information for one scene. So he gave so much information that when Eric started to do it, he was actually recutting Robin Williams' dialogue and all the stuff to make the audio tracks before he animated the genie. So it was just like, it wasn't like he just did it and that's all. Like Robin Williams just did it and that was all. There was like so much information that Eric cut down. Eric, he worked on the Roger Rabbit stuff. And all the different things. It's really they pulled every animator they could find to work on Roger because it was so intense. And it's just crazy, man. When I reverse engineer this stuff, it's like, was I even there? I mean, it's almost like you can't believe it's like a dream. But information, I don't think about this during the day until you guys are talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's not always a guarantee for success to have so many talented people at the top of their field on one project. We've seen that crash that you guys had and that understanding, like you mentioned, it was just blow and go, not, to say that coins were cut, but hey, we have an idea. Everybody like it. Cool. Let's move forward. So for everybody to be able to agree with those ideas, and I have to imagine with that many heavy hitters in the room, so to speak, that a lot of egos had to be checked. A lot of things people had to, okay, that's fine. We can do that, because in order for it to move so smoothly and so quickly, that has to hide and maybe let somebody else get their stuff in. And I'm glad it happened that way.
That's where Bob Zemeckis was the king on that. That everything went to Bob. Bob made decisions. We got, he was so good. The way he can shoot his live action films, he applied the same thing to this one, except it was like, I mean, he was learning too as we go. It's like, I don't know how we do this. We did stuff.
Mm-hmm. But there had to be, people had to be open to that. People had to be open to new ideas and also open to listening to somebody in their field of expertise. Yes, Bob is a great director, but he's not an animator.
Right.
So you had to kind of, okay, we this is your vision. We trust that this is your vision and we're going to help you achieve it. But I think, go ahead.
When it was animated, you get Bob's reaction. He'd laugh at it and all the stuff. When you had it, and then it's like but he was actually directing so good.
Mm-hmm. I think wokeness is water, and what I mean by that is art and entertainment is like a dog with long hair, and the hair is fluffy and stuck to the body. The dog looks, skinny because it doesn't have his hair all puffed up and it looks soggy. It just weighs things down. And like I mentioned before, with the Indian coming out of the bullet and smashing the bottle, there would be so many layers of feelings. And okay, represented in this scene. Well, I guess they could be, but I don't. You're taking away.
That movie would have
Right?
never been done. You
Right?
can't
You
do
can't.
that.
You can't. My
Yeah.
dad would tell me, son, you can't please all the people all the time.
That's what it is.
So
Yeah.
Listen,
there are just too many masters to please, and yeah, you're right. It would just get
this
bogged down.
would have never happened. This movie would
Just
never.
do that. Just do that next time. Draw that.
The fat green-haired lady with the problem glasses would never
that's
allow.
where it gets all messed up. It's okay if I don't enjoy it, but what about the people who I'm selling it to? What about, will they enjoy it? Well, then yes. Do they want to see that? Yes. Then give that to them, because in business, that's what I want to see. Never mind how you feel. Never mind that your dad didn't hug you enough. Never mind that you were the ugly kid in school and you never got dates. That's not my problem. I'm the consumer. I want my action movies to have one-liners and boobs and body counts. So give it to me. I want my animation to be whatever genre I'm in. If I'm in, silly, this kind of stuff, Toontown, then give me that. Don't be preachy. Don't lecture me. Don't bog it down with all of these groups that you think need to be represented, or what makes you feel. Don't give me burgers, fries, and a milkshake. Don't give me a taco. Don't give me sushi. I came to McDonald's.
Going to McDonald's, they start lecturing you about your waistline, and they start trying to feed you kale salad.
That's what my wife is for. That's what my wife is for. I didn't come here for that. I came here for a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. So give me.
I'm gonna eat. I came here for garbage food that I'm gonna eat in the car and throw the trash away before I go inside. Yes. Eat the dinner my wife made.
Oh man, you guys are the greatest, man. You got all these good backstories too. These are good.
Yeah,
well, we're like you, Bill. We're both fathers. We're family men.
Yeah,
I'm married 29 years. Next year,
wow, congratulations.
I'm coming up on 18 years in January. So
I got October 15th at 42. Okay.
Oh, see,
I got the longest marriage in Hollywood.
You got the longest. Oh man, by leaps
by 41 years, you've got
41 years.
Hey,
right.
Let me ask you this, Bill. Speaking of kids, were your kids of age when you were doing some of your projects, and how did they feel? Did you get to see them?
They were two daughters were born across the street from Walt Disney Studios to St. Joseph's, right? And so when my oldest daughter, they asked me, would you like to fly your wife up on the jet to Lucas Ranch and have her up here with you? Now she's pregnant with our second baby, right? So I kept thinking, oh man, my wife said, no, I'd love to come up there. So she went around the set being pregnant. And my other daughter, who was then about 5, was the same age, said he ran around and played with her, and they sat on the lap and they run on the set while the sets are going on. And they basically said he hadn't seen his daughter like in 3/4 of a year or something because he's working on this project so much. And it was like, and he said, I just love it. He wanted to kiss my daughter. He said, I miss my kids so much. And it was like, but it was something where when that was the best thing in my life was to have them come up for the weekend. And there's so tons of cars to give you, right? So you just pick the one you want. You got a sports car, so we go to the hotel and give us cars. They give me a station wagon. And again, he didn't come to you like a sports car. And I said, man, he says, oh, your wife's pregnant. I'm like, oh, man.
This is more your speed.
Station wagon. I'm like, yeah, what do you think? It was like something from the 50s, too. It was like, some movie proper.
Oh, they give you the Leave It to Beaver station wagon. Hey, something else I want to ask you real quick, Bill. what are some of the things working for Disney and these huge studios? What are some of the things you saw? What kind of car do you want? What are some of the other things you saw where these big studios just had money to burn, and some of the things they were kind of giving the actors and the staff?
Well, the wrap parties, right? And then the bonuses, and then the merch, the jackets. Like everybody get a crew jacket, right? 500 people get a crew jacket, right? That's the car. That's about it, man. That's about it. And it was like, oh, but it was something probably out of the movie The Birds at Alfred Hitchcock or something. I don't know. But in Northern California. But and then it's just stuff that the more the studios, the bigger the budget, the more kind of gifts you'd get, right? And then the smaller the budget, it literally was, here we're going to get some cupcakes with the name of the movie on them. It's not like you get this Chanel bag at the Oscars that they give to the actors at like $40,000 worth of cosmetics. Not everybody gets that. It's just like, and then the governor's ball, everything is kind of limited to your position in the film. Right. So, and another thing I was going to say real quick, when the film is edited,
he's on the East Coast, people, so give him a break.
He's getting later. Anyway, no, I'm doing good. So what it is we were using Steambex, right? Now that's a top loader editing machine that was reel to reel, that would go through a monitor in the front and the reels on the tabletop. So it would run, and then you're looking at the TV set in front. So Artie Schmidt's editing this. The mech is realized is when a cartoon character comes across the screen on the little screen and runs across like this, or goes really quick across the screen like this, it looks okay for us. But when you're on Radio City Music Hall, it's like, boom, right? So you had to time down and slow by the timing of the editing. You had to slow it down slow. You had to slow the cut down. So on the big screen, like IMAX or something, it wouldn't race across there and give me a headache. And God forbid it was like like when you have this 3D, when you cut stuff like virtual reality and doing 3D camera, 3D glasses they did for a while. That's the stuff that you get, like your head would go like, oh my God, what's going on here, right? So everything it was weird that a lot of that stuff, that the Steambex.
Is that it? That machine there?
That's pretty close to it.
It's got a little TV screen and the reels of film.
Yeah. The other one was a flat tabletop.
Okay.
Right. So basically, you can put 35 millimeter film on a whole reel of it and run it. So we weren't digital then. You got to understand that every cut was spliced. Wow. They always had somebody with tape.
Like really, guys would like cut it physically and then tape it. Like that's
they had the little machine, and you cut it like this, and then you lay the tape over like this and tape it, and then it would cut, right? So now that's the mix.
Wow.
And can you imagine, Jericho? You're editing film, you cut it, and you cut it wrong. You damage it.
Yeah, the original negative, don't screw with that one. Yeah. So what you do?
And it isn't cheap.
And then what you did, you had like laundry baskets that had a bar on the top, and all the film strip is laid down on top. That basically had the numbers and what it was, what scene it was, and I just don't. Artie won an Oscar. Artie Schmidt won an Oscar for that. For the editing, Roger Rabbit.
Wow. So did you find that you like working better with maybe more free-flowing, artsy type directors, or did you like working with more structured, rigid, kind of a little more militant?
When I get with a lucid director that knows what they want to do, that's combining that basically I can pick, and they'll pick the right stuff. Right. And it'd be like, oh, this is great. I'm glad you went in this direction. I wasn't even thinking like that. Let me put it in here, right? Whereas it's somebody who knows what they want, that's a little different. Because Brad Bird knows what he wants, right? But he'll also take an option if you give it to him. Mm-hmm. And he's a genius director. Incredibles, all that. He's just banging each time, every time.
You may have heard of Brad Bird, Tim Burton. These are your contemporaries. When you started as an animator at Disney, these guys were young kids there with you animating, right?
We're in our 20s.
Think about that.
Tim was working on Vincent. He was working on Pee Wee Herman a little bit. He hadn't even started Pee Wee Herman, but he was working on Vincent. He was working on Frank and Weenie. And I remember walking around the studio, and it's like this little white pit bull, and I'm like, oh man, this dog is like, now it was Frankenstein bolts and stuff, and I'm showing this dog and like, oh man, what happened to him? And he's got like, he was so good, and I'm like, and they're walking this little dog, but he didn't walk like he was cut up like that, right? He looked like he went through a lawnmower, right? So then I went over to the set, and they got the miniature sets and on the sound stages, and they had Frankie lights and the original stuff. They had gotten it from Universal or something, and they put it up in the attic. So when he went up there to bring the dog up on the lift, and I'm in there with Rick Heinrich, who's a close friend when I got out there. Anyway, he was like, oh, let's go up to the set. And I'm like, don't touch anything. It's a hot set because the things are still moving around. But it was just like, and everything was distorted. That tower in the back, the windmill, would be really small. And then the hill would have big grass on it in the front, regular grass. And then the next hill would have a little shorter grass. And the distance would be just painted grass. So when you look at it, it was actually... if you put regular grass, you wouldn't see the miniatures like Ray Harryhausen. Mm-hmm. You can't have it all the same. It has to fade. And then you'd have like when they were up at Willow. They were shooting Willow up there when I was up there.
Another great movie.
They had all the stuff.
Jericho, you don't even know the 3-hour lunch we had. I just kept naming stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I worked on that." He's like, there was a Crest toothpaste commercial with the cavity creeps attacking the tooth base. He did that. I told my brother's like, oh, the cavity creeps. Yeah, this is like 1982 or 83. I'm like 5.
Yeah.
Well, with this Willow thing, what they did was they shot to the feed, right? And some miniature. I'm not used to seeing these miniatures. You go on this set, and they put gauze in between the stretched across, so when your camera is facing it, it goes from heavy gauze in the back to through, and they could put certain smoke in between them, right? So you'd have bigger clouds in the foreground and make it distance. All this stuff was so they could shoot the milk tanks and all this stuff. That it was just walking around was like a dream.
Wow. Yeah. So you mean the Pee Wee Herman? You mean the Pee Wee Herman TV show they were working on?
Yeah. No, the movie.
Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah. So Tim went up to Market Street up in Burbank, up on the hill where it was like this old mall, and that's where Pee Wee gets his bike stolen. And he's up there and he's looking at the bikes in a bike shop, and they took my biking around for cheap sets to shoot and stuff. But it was like we're working on Black Cauldron, and we're working on some of the early films, and everybody was trying to figure out what they were doing because they were trying to find a direction where the studio was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, before that golden age of Little Mermaid, and then on what I've heard, you were there, Bill. I was not. So if I'm wrong, correct me. Disney was in trouble.
Yeah,
they were not having hits. They spent a ton of money on the Black Cauldron, and it flopped.
Yep.
People said it was too scary and evil for kids or whatever. And they were, and I didn't know. You told us a while ago. If Roger Rabbit crashed and burned, that could have been a fatal blow for Disney.
Yeah. Yep. That would have
So,
been.
wow.
They put so much money. Now the other thing is the movie The Longest Day, the D-Day movie.
Yeah.
That was done by Daryl Zanuck, basically because Elizabeth Taylor was blowing money on the movie Cleopatra in Italy, and she was so eccentric, and they're trying to build all these sets. They were going under. 20th Century Fox was going to go under with her costing all of this. She was so far over budget, it would ruin the studio. It was going to close. So they said, everybody on deck. We got Robert Redford, John Wayne, Sean Connery, everybody under contract went to shoot The Longest Day to make money to make Cleopatra.
Wow.
Right? They had to come up with some money. So they knew on the 45th anniversary, on the 30th anniversary, the 20th anniversary of D-Day, they were able to. They knew they had an audience. They knew they'd put up there and make money to balance out the Cleopatra project money, but they had to go ahead and split their pennies to make these other films because the actors were almost too eccentric, and it was like the movie Giant. It's like, stuff. I mean, it was just Marilyn Monroe. All these people were so. If they don't act, they're different now. But I mean, you weren't lean and green, you close, and that's what you look at Disney.
Wait, Bill, are you saying that artists get weird head cases sometimes? Is that what you're trying to get me to believe?
Right. Well, there's so much stuff that if you track down Disney films, they weren't really successful. Pinocchio didn't make a lot of money because of World War II. Dumbo didn't make a lot of money. 101 Dalmatians didn't make a lot. And every time, so Disney's, okay, let's make a park. Let's do this. They always said, if the park was doing good, they can make a movie. Mm-hmm. If the movie's doing good, they have money to put into the park. So
I only found out just a few years ago
that
the majority of the money Disney makes is from their parks. I didn't know that.
That's what it is.
I thought it was their cartoons and their movies and their lunch boxes and fruit roll. I thought it was like the characters. Yeah. I had no idea it was the Disneyland, Disney World make most of their money. I didn't. Well,
that's where they had to have something to bring. What happened is that when I was a kid, it'd take every 4 years they would release a Disney film like Pinocchio, and then the next one would be Fantasia or something. You got to wait 4 years, so you're 4 years old, you're 8, then you're 12. And your mind changes. I don't want to watch that. Or Alice in Wonderland was like this psychedelic crazy thing. And it was kind of like so weird stuff. And Katzenberg said, we're gonna put all these movies out all at once at Disney Library. And they put them all out, and all of a sudden they made a heck of a lot of money because everybody bought these tapes. And and that's where you saw it in the first VHS. But what it really turned out to be was automatic babysitters. You could drop it in, and the parents had a half an hour. Mm-hmm. So that was like, I'll pay whatever it is.
Half an hour for Dad to give Mom a massage.
Yeah, massage. We're talking. We're talking. Don't bother us.
Look, hey, for those of you out there, if you're wondering where your children are in your house when they're little, shut the door to your room with your wife.
Here they come.
Your children will materialize at the door instantly.
Mom.
What the hell is that?
Mom.
What is that?
Because they can sense your fun and relaxation. You're putting pheromones in the air, like Mom and Dad are having.
And then when the kids like in a movie when it's real quiet, something's wrong with the movie, right? It's like, what's going on? That's the same thing with kids. Why? What are they doing? Where are they? What are you
doing? Mm-hmm. And in some cases, we would watch the movie, and then as soon as it's over, rewind it, and watch it again. So that might give Mom and Dad 2 hours, 3 hours. Next thing you know, 3 months later, Mom and Dad are sitting you down at the kitchen table to tell you, you have a little brother. But
that's true.
Those I'm so glad to hear. Not only passionate about the project, but like you were saying earlier, thinking about how it's going to be perceived, thinking of You know, they got to get the kids in the car and go see this, and we want it to be good. And just so it is good, just so it's quality entertainment, people can enjoy it. People can share it with their kids. People can watch it over and over again. And because we see things, you know, I believe that life, we're only seeing it from the finished product. Again, we're not seeing all the blood, sweat, and tears of the thought that goes into this, but I'm glad that that kind of thought is going into it. Is it still going into it today? I don't know. But the things you were involved in that era, we still have them today, and we can enjoy them unchanged. And it's just really good to hear. And it's so cool to hear the stories about it. I'm thinking Disney just has money. I didn't know that they were robbing Peter to pay Paul. And if the park does good, we put it in the movies. The movies are good. We put it into the parks, and most of their money comes from the parks and not these, you know, the Moanas of the world and all these things that we see. So it's kind of cool to hear about the real goings on behind the scenes and what you guys had to do to just make it work. And as you also mentioned, you guys are in your 20s, getting a bunch of 20-somethings together to do a project. I mean, we're talking, there's science involved here. These aren't the most focused people in the world. And then you throw in some, you know, some power to make things happen, to create things. You got a little budget behind you, and mom and dad aren't there to make sure that you're doing things. So to also have a bunch of young people like that, young, talented people to get together and make these things that will go on forever. As long as we have a way to recreate, to put these on a streaming service or whatever the future may be, how we get our entertainment, they'll live on forever. And that quality will be there forever. And as you saw in the chat, when we're putting up the pictures of Steel Giant and Roger Rabbit, oh man, I love this. I love Willow. My wife and I, we can keep sharing them with each other.
Well, they always say that the credits, once you're on the credits, it's forever, right? So I'll look at credits and I'll see friends and I'll think all my buddies, right? I'll see, oh man, I wonder if, and it's a phone list to me. I'll call them up and say, like when I was seeing Gabe, it was like, I saw on TV, just like that. It was like, what? Because I'm going to, only because I was going to go out to Carlsbad and he's right in that same area. So, I wouldn't, you know, if it was the middle of the United States, I went up, it was like, hey, I'm going to be in Carlsbad, and he's out in San Diego, and it's like, what? You know, so I said, I don't want to stay on the beach with the family the whole time. I want to hang out with some cool dudes.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was a delight. We went to one of my favorite places, Spirito's Italian restaurant. They're back, Italians from the East Coast, family owned. If you're ever in Carlsbad, California, which is just North County, San Diego on the ocean side, delicious food at Spirito's. Love Spirito's. It reminds me of my dad's a gourmet chef. It reminds me of my dad's red sauce. So Jericho's father was a great chef too.
Yeah. Really? And something that you mentioned earlier, Bill, hanging out with, having your daughter come to the set of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. My dad, after he got out of the Army, he was a cook in the Army, and then he was a chef, and there was a place here, or where we used to live, down on the coast in Carmel, called the Carmel Tennis Ranch. And a lot of celebrities stayed there. It was kind of to have Shirley Temple hanging out in the kitchen with them. John Wayne would drop off his daughter there to hang out with them. And to another thing that we don't get from this side, you know, being the consumer of the entertainment that you guys make, is you don't see the actors as human. And I think that's also part of I shouldn't say human. We don't see them as regular people. We see them as, you know, celebrities. Yeah. So all their, Shirley Temple, right?
There you go.
That was given to me by a guy that was in Iwo Jima.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my dad, he served during.
He got wounded, and Shirley Temple went to visit him in San Francisco.
That's awesome.
I bet he got better real fast.
Yeah. Also, a good drink. But, you don't see them as normal people, but like you, and I've also had the experience of being stuff. Very quickly, you see that they're just like us. They have kids. They have problems. Yeah. They, you know, they got to wake up in the morning and take a dump. You know, just like we do. So it's really cool to when you get to hang out with them and see that people just like us.
I've always found when you go to the Oscars, the men's room is really funny because you got all these famous people.
Yeah,
you
and they are.
It's just like me.
Yeah, I R.I.P. Hulk Hogan. But when I met Hulk Hogan at the radio station, he comes in and he goes, "Oh, where's your bathroom, brother?" And so I took Hulk Hogan to the bathroom. I didn't go in the bathroom, of course, but yeah. Like,
I heard you.
Hulk, are you ready? More than two shakes, you're playing with it. But it's cool to see those, especially somebody that you've been a fan of for a long time, that maybe you've been a fan of for years, for decades, and you meet them, and it's always a bonus when they're actually a cool person.
Yeah.
And you see them in there doing things just like we do, eating a sandwich, or smoking a cigarette, whatever.
I always know that there's so many people, middle management, and all this other stuff blocks you from meeting the people. And it's kind of like, no, he's busy. We got to do, and that's their job, right? But really, the only way you're going to get it, just by this experience with Gabe and you, right? It's just by just synchronicity. It's just like real quick, easy. All of a sudden, it's like, look, we're at, right? And that's the way it should happen. But the cell phone, all that stuff is blocked that,
Yeah. It's the double-edged sword of technology. Oh, Bill, working for Warner's and Disney like I did forever, I met some celebs. I'm sure you met many more because you're there in Burbank or whatever. You're at the studios all the time. But I would meet them at Comic-Cons, and I've been to a few Hollywood premieres for Aquaman and Shazam. And what I have always found, how easy I was when I met you. I just talked to you like your old Uncle Bill, like I've known you forever. I talk this way to Dolph Lundgren and to different people. And what I have found when I met celebrities and just talk to them this way, like, yeah, you're Dolph, you change your oil, your Uncle Dolph or whatever. I've had good luck. They just act normal with me. And I'm guessing, I'm mind reading. I think when you meet someone that famous and you just talk to them like they're normal, they're like, oh, thank God he's not kissing my ass. We're just having a normal conversation. I think that's what's going on. Why I've had such good luck talking to super famous people. I don't know. Was that your experience? Do you think I'm on something there?
Well, it's funny. My daughter, when the Titanic came out, she was a Leonardo DiCaprio fan. Those kids, she was like 10. It's like, oh my God. And then Kate Winslet and all this stuff. So they went down the Oscar. Anyway, Kate came out with the two Academy Awards. And my daughter, I had gone to the guy that made the Hook. Captain Hooks was Dustin Hoffman.
Oh no, Gremlins 2.
Right? Anyway, I had the Star of the Ocean, right? Made with like kind of fake diamonds in a big blue stone, and I had that made for my daughter. So she's standing out there. Kate Winslet's like in the lobby, and she's like, "Oh my God!" My daughter was just in awe, and she was so into the movie, and she was like, "Oh, you're so sweet. You want to hold the Oscars?" And she was like. And she was a singer. She went to school, Berkeley School of Music, right? And so anyway, she was like, my wife was telling me that she was up in the, she's sitting in her seat when Celine Dion is singing, and she's trying to suck the air in from Celine, like, like she's like learning, like you're getting this special music coming through, and it was. And they're real. Like I was with when Mel what's his name? A Braveheart.
You say Mel Gibson?
No, Mel Gibson. It was no. So anyway, it was the Oscars. It was the Oscars for Braveheart, right? So anyway, he comes out and he's killed, and he's got a knife in the bag. He said, "How do you get that through security?" Right? He's down. He's got his knife and all this stuff, and he's holding the Oscars. And I'm looking at him. He's just like sweating crazy. Like, man, that was a great movie. It was really good. And we're in the lobby, and I'm like, God, he's a lot shorter than I thought he was. Kind of. And that's the one thing I always find. People are bigger, shorter, and it's like, man, what happened to you? I'm thinking because you can correct stuff in film, or you had the film you're thinking about 5 years ago. Really, right? And you just it's because you're living in the film. Right, you're living what you see in the film, but all that kind of stuff is just to me. They're all nice people. It was really, it was fun. So,
I think you get what you give. If you just act normal with people, they'll respond. Yeah. If you act weird and stuff, then they're gonna feel weird.
Yeah.
So So, wow. I had a question. I lost it.
Braveheart.
I
You
don't
guys
know.
go
It's
jump.
okay.
You
It'll
guys
come back. It'll come back.
jump back screen on that one. I don't know. Anyway, it was funny that after Ryan was happening, I had a long story on that one. But anyway, the Irish, we were over in Ireland for 5 years, doing films and stuff. But anyway, they used the beaches in Ireland for the Saving Private Ryan beaches, right? And they used all the Irish military to play the parts and stuff. And it was just kind of wild. It was that my dad was there, and it was something. I mean, during D-Day, the real one. Anyway, it was stuff that nobody wanted to see that stuff. Wow, Dad, you never said this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were gone by then, but it was something where it really brought grandkids and grandparents into a whole other deeper connection that you would have forever been lost if the grandparent, because they just come back as regular people. They sure have their nightmares, but they come back as dad, right? And it's like, what? You never said that. And that's the kind of a thing where, like, I mean, I jump way off mark on this one. That's why in a character in a comic can have such a backstory that you was like, what? It's like the Sixth Sense. The audience likes getting back into the connecting with the audience. The audience likes to be teased, played, and oh no, that's not what's happening. I know. No. And then all of a sudden you flip it. It's like, oh man, oh no, that's not possible. Our artwork is make it. That's so connective to the audience, like I was saying before. The more you are serving the audience with your character, the more they want to. They're so entertained by it, they want to see it again. Right now, the only problem with that, right?
No. We need new ideas constantly. Yep. Yeah, new stuff.
Hey, I should let you guys talk. I'm doing a podcast right here.
No. You're I mean, this show, Jericho, and I do is about Hollywood and our love of it and how good movies can be. What a force for good storytelling can be. And it's just a shame what it's turned into. I don't want to get negative. We enough of that. Talk about the woke nonsense, but I feel, and Jericho, you've said you agree, that the zenith of American cinema, world cinema, because America's the best, is the 80s. Because you have the state of the art, the special effects were good enough, the acting, the method acting from Marlon Brando, the acting was good enough, it was amazing acting, good enough special effects, and you didn't have the left-wing, radical, junior college, blue-haired weirdo completely have taken over Hollywood like it has now. Any joke without somebody filing a lawsuit, but you have the state of the art of filmmaking right there. That's why I think the 80s is the zenith, because in the 90s, political correctness takes hold in the later part of the 90s up to what we have now. And in the 70s, the special effects and things, they weren't good enough yet. They were getting there. Star Wars blew the roof off.
Yeah.
I think that's why the 80s is the moment right there. That's where the two lines cross on the chart. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do you think that's what I think?
No, I totally agree with it. Totally agree with it. And I think right now it's hard to find a good story. And what it is.
It isn't. We know the hero's journey. Stop being weird left-wing ideologues.
What?
Knock it off.
Well, you know the thing. We've been making movies for 100 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why can't you make a perfect movie every time? Because somebody's in the way.
Right. My two movies I hold up instantly when I think of perfect movies: Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future. To me, those are both perfect movies. I think there's no fat on them. They're just bang, 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 scene after scene, line after line. I wouldn't take the flame out of those.
Dean Cundy, who you saw on the picture, Roger Rabbit, shot both his movies.
Wow.
Damn. I think that movies, TV, and commercials. Those are like the federal government, state government, and local government.
Yeah.
You know, the movies, you have to go to the movie theater. And talking, I'm speaking in terms of, back in the 80s. So you have to go to TV. So you go watch those at home, every week or every night whenever they came on. And then commercials, you saw those all the time. You had local commercials, you had, car dealerships. Or I remember back in the day, they had for the Salinas Transit, the bus company, they had the whole campaign, Ride the Bus with Us. So, but not only were the movies like that in the 80s, but the TV shows were like that in the 80s, and you saw it reflect family. TV shows had a mom, dad, kids. The commercials, mom and dad are going out to, Pizza Hut or whatever the commercial was about. There was a family dynamic to it. And not every product was for a family, but there was a lot of that. And there was still that, TV shows, Family Matters, Cosby Show, Growing Pains. Yep. All these shows had even like Who's the Boss. It was untraditional, but there was still a dad and the kids and the power structure was as such. But now that's not the case. Now it's more of, family, whatever you want it to be. Family, insert here a mom, a dog, and 3 possums. That's a family. But I think getting away from those traditions can also how there aren't original stories. And like you said, there's 4 or 5, 6, 7 parts to everything. Nothing can be that good. I don't believe. Maybe you'll get 3 good ones out of a franchise, and that's rarefied there. Certainly not 4 and 5 and whatever they're doing. Look at the.
I'll tell you what we need is another Avengers movie.
Right? Let's kill everything. Let's get the way more obscure characters.
I want a 3-hour movie about Hercules. It's very important.
Yeah, I need the origin story of
right.
I need the origin story of the Vulture.
Spider-Man.
That's what I need. But I think there's a direct correlation between getting away from those traditions, family traditions, really. Because you look at some of the greatest action movies going back to the 80s. What were they motivated by? You got Commando, Rambo. There was all some type of family. They took my daughter. They killed my wife or whatever, my buddies from the war, my partner. There was some kind of family connection because that's the greatest motivation, family. And the farther we get away from that, the worse things are going to get, the worse entertainment's going to get because that's who you're entertaining. You're entertaining families. That's who's usually going to go to the movies and take the kids to see it is mom and dad, the family. So I think that's why entertainment from that era is even more valuable today, is because it was actual good entertainment. It wasn't preachy. It wasn't you're bad if you don't agree with this, and it wasn't slowed down by trying to please. And now at the Oscars, in order to get Film of the Year, you have to check all these boxes. You have to have all of these underrepresented, minute, tiny little groups of people that, not to be rude, but who cares to contain these people or have these people in it? Awesome, but they're losing sight. Like you said, the story is king. That's the main focus here, is the story. And when you get away from that, it's going to suck.
Art, as ethereal and spiritual and emotional as we like to pretend art is, there's math to it. At the end of it all, it is just patterns. Story is a pattern, drawing is a pattern, color, light, perspective, all just scientific patterns. When you try to break those patterns with left-wing communist propaganda, everyone rolls their eyes like, oh, the mom saved everyone from the burning building and the dad cried. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. So it takes you right out of the story. They try to, we got to stick a gay guy and a black guy. Listen, we all loved Cosby. Nobody cared that he was black or white or whatever. We cared that he was a dad and a mom and kids. And we didn't think about it. We didn't overthink it because they weren't black. They were humans. It's like, get over this stuff. Yeah. We're done with that. Like, they were just human. And it was a great show with great messages. And no one cared about the race. But you see that stuff I said about the wokeness in the 90s. Seinfeld, hilarious. No
Yeah.
kids, no family, just selfishness. Me, George, Elaine, Jerry, Kramer just live for themselves. Friends, got a bunch of people there just living for themselves. So if America was a bakery, the flour, you need flour to bake. If you need anything, you need flour. No flour, no bakery. Family is the flour of our culture.
Yeah.
Without family, you can't keep making this culture. You're just going to eat up what you already made. And once you finish eating what you already made, there's nothing coming down the conveyor belt now. We have to have family. It's like a bad word now, family.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
And as a kid, in the 80s, you had the remnants of the 50s. You would still see, I remember right after my local TV station was KCBA Fox School. You watch your cartoons, and then you get into the evening programming, sitcoms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right after cartoons was Leave It to Beaver. And then after that was, Alf or something, another family show. But you still had the remnants of Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, Bewitched, and stuff like that. These old shows that had that family dynamic, that traditional dynamic. Should some traditions be changed? Yes, but I think that should occur naturally.
Yeah.
And tradition is not bad. Tradition does not mean archaic, mean, crude ways we used to do things. Traditions are family dinner, that's Christmas dinner, that's what you do every day as a family, that's our shared experience as Americans. Gabe and I grew up thousands of miles away from each other. You and I, Bill, we grew up thousands of miles away from each other at a different time. Yet we still have stories that we can share. We can still share Christmas morning stories, or 4th of July stories, or the first day of school, or the last day of school, or getting your driver's license, or going to a baseball game or something like that. There's shared experiences that we all have because of tradition. That's how we connect in these movies. That's why you're sitting here getting like it was made yesterday, because of the traditions and the message in it. And that's awesome. And I hope that there's some tiny little, Bill Frake watching this who's going to say, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to continue. That's my passion, to keep that going, because like Gabe said, if we stop this, I shudder to think what's going to be coming down the conveyor belt.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you. There's so much stuff. I was trying to look on my phone. I had some pictures of me look like Leave It Beaver. But anyway, I had to where are all those things, right? But all my memories as a kid, I put in all my films along the way, right? So if I don't have memories, I don't have film. I don't have ideas. So I go out looking for ideas every day, meeting new people, doing things. I don't get like stagnant. I want to try things, do things, and see what comes out of it. And literally, when somebody says, "Show me something," which always Hollywood says, "We want to do something nobody's ever seen before." It's like, oh, great. Well, the trick to that one is if you go ahead and do something that personally, no one's ever seen it because it's your experience.
Right.
And when you do that, what you do is you're able to have something so original that nobody's ever heard of it, because it's something that's only with you. So every time you do that, you're original. And if you start to copy things, I kind of seen that before. I've seen it over here doing. Try something from yourself, and nobody's ever gonna. That's what I like doing.
I do that. In Dean Cain, All-American Lawman, my James Bond, Indiana Jones style graphic novel, the scene early in the book establishing the relationship between the son and the father, high school age son, and he's a backup player to the school volleyball team, but he has to start that night because the starter got injured and he doesn't want to do it, and he's scared, and he does it anyway, and he helps win the game. And his dad, the main character, tells him, and he tells his dad, "You were right, Dad. I should play. I didn't want to play because I was scared to lose for my team." That happened to me when I was 7. I was a backup player on the soccer team. My mom was the coach. Thankfully, I wasn't just a starter because my mom was the coach. I was a backup, and the goalie got hurt, and I had to be the goalie next Saturday in the soccer game. And I cried the night before, and I told my mom, if they score goals, it's going to be my fault, and we're going to lose. And I blocked everything, and we blanked the other team, and I was so good, and we won. And it did so much for my confidence that my mom made me do it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're scared, you're going to do it. The team needs you. And it made me realize when I was little, like, you can be terrified and still just do stuff.
Yeah.
And it was such a good lesson for me. And I was able to put that in a graphic novel, and it was a good character moment for somebody.
One thing, you need a mentor and a legacy to be behind you when you jump like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. We always have somebody say, I wouldn't have done this if this person had said, come on, man, we got to do it. You got to have some backup, because you're going to hit a wall of your insecurities throughout your life. And then you're going to stop and be comfortable and sit. But then somebody's like, oh man, we got to try this, do this or whatever. And I don't know what makes an artist scared to go past. Once they learn something, they get comfortable and just kind of stay there. Right.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah. And they're like, no, I'm doing fine. I'm getting paid. I'm going, right. Then there's other people that just want to like go to the as far out as you can, and they're the ones that are the happiest.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it. I want to be better than JC Linedecker. Now, for anyone who wants to clip that, I did not say that I'm better than him. I want to be. I don't know if I ever would be. I'm 47. I own my own publishing, and I'm currently taking watercolor lessons. I don't ever want to stop. I want to be the best. Can I do it?
Yeah.
Nobody knows. But I can try. I can keep trying forever.
And the intestinal fortitude it takes as a parent to push your kid to do that, because it's always easier to coddle them and, no, it's okay. You're scared. You're sad. Okay, you don't have to do that. So as a parent, you have to have faith in your decision to push them to do that, because it could crash and burn. Maybe you would have missed all the goals and they scored 10
Oh
points.
My God. Team up. The whole team.
Well, how many kids have climbed a tree recently, right? And you kind of like, in my day, it'd be a climb a tree and fall out like, oh fuck, you come in and it's like, okay, what's the matter? I fell out of a tree. Anything bleeding? No, okay, fine. Suffer's rated. Let's get over the table.
Yep.
And that's because, Bill, we had a father culture.
Yep.
Now we only have mama. Mama and daddy are equal in value. They cannot do the same thing for children. They're not designed that way. Mama nurtures and coddles and safety. Father is like resilience. That's what you get from father. Mm-hmm. You need that balance. You throw the kid, the other kid is on the time like screaming. Mom always says, don't, you'll drop him. Is the one that taught me in that soccer example. That's unusual. But it's not typical for mamas to do that. And we look at the neighborhoods where there are no fathers, and it's very bad what goes on there. So I want to say one more thing. The thing Jericho was saying about all the great movies and TV show that have that family dynamic, the dad, the mom, the children. I think if we make good art that is as good or better than Netflix and Disney and Paramount Warner, and it has those values in it again, I think it would be decades, but over the years you could steer culture back, because I really do believe that's what steered culture the other way. That these people in Hollywood, they're so talented, but the messages started to get really negative and awful. But the brain doesn't see it as immoral; it sees it as entertainment, and you're convinced, oh, maybe I should live like this. I should never get married, never have kids, because the show's good and the show's funny, and it convinces you that's a good life. And it's not. It's a bad life, and it hurts culture.
I mean, I'm a big fan of, you got trains, planes, automobiles. And then you got Home Alone, right? You got Christmas Story. That's all family stuff. And that stuff keeps coming. Every year they're playing it, right? And I still laugh at that stuff, and it's almost like, again, I think they're just getting a culture to where they're selling to the culture. They're selling I heard this and it was kind of crazy, but last week was the worst motion picture on Box Office Mojo since 1980.
Damn.
Every movie made about $1 million. Okay. Nobody wanted to see actors, Julia Roberts. Nobody wanted to see. They wanted Miyazaki horror, and some other. They only wanted certain subjects, and nobody went to the theater. It was like crash and burn, and Hollywood was flipping out, and they were talking about. And at that time, news critics would bring more films back here in California stuff. It wasn't about the tax credits, right? It was trying to. We're going to save the industry. What the heck is going on here? But if you look at what happened last weekend in the box office, it was bad, right?
Well, this is probably true for you because you make movies, popcorn, the soda, the giant screen, the sound, the stereo, the Dolby, the THX, or whatever it is. I love going to the movies. I don't go anymore. Since the lockdown in 2020, I think I've been to the movies 4 times.
Yeah.
I used to go all the time. But I will tell you this, and you probably know it, even though you worked in the industry, because I worked in the mainstream industry too, and I know it. I feel like Hollywood movie stars hate me.
Yeah.
I feel like they hate me.
Right.
I feel like they hate Christians.
Yep.
They hate family people. And I don't hate them. I worked with them in the studio, listened to them insult my God and my religion and my country for years as I worked with them. But I just did my job. But I feel like they despise me. So now I have this weird resentment of like, well, your movie's probably going to be woke shit that I hate, and you fucking hate me. So why do I want to go to the theater? So I just like don't go anymore. My wife's like, let's go to a movie. I open Fandango on my phone. I scroll through like the movies that are playing. I'm like,
I agree with you. Yeah, it's crazy, and I just find that all the money is flying up there too, so they got more control, right? And it's kind of like they're just. I mean, it's a whole weird thing. If they'll take you out, they'll buy you out, right? If you get too much. If you get the way to get ahead, if you want to make a bunch of money, is become a thorn in their side, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? We'll take. Would you like a deal here doing this? What would make you stop doing what you're doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And some people, hey, perfect. I'll do that, and they'll do something else. But you got these. It's like early retirement. I'm like 40, and I'm just like, I'm going to retire. Fine, perfect. I've been wanting to do this, and then you do your own stuff you don't get into the public. You just do it yourself, and it's like they're doing these buyout takeovers, and it's like that's why it's yet. But every other thing they've done, they've screwed it around, right?
No, Gonzo, a children's Muppet show about 3 years ago. Gonzo was wearing a dress and talking about being another gender. That did happen. Okay. Yes, so they got the Muppets too.
Okay.
No, I hate the curtain, but I
didn't know that. So, well, that's
so you can't. Like, if you see a celebrity that you're a fan of, and you've been a fan for years, but then you look and they post something that says, if you voted for this person, you're a piece of shit, you're an asshole, or whatever. Well, now, as a man, I can't know that you think that about me and then, like, boo-boo the fool, go stand in line and give you my money. No, you think that I'm a piece of shit. I enjoyed what you put on the screen. I enjoyed your work and your product. But because you're an asshole, you took that away from me, and now I can't support you anymore, and I won't. So I think a lot of people are just seeing that, like, you're not, number one, you're preachy, you don't like, if I don't agree with you, you hate me, but also you're not putting out a good product. And eventually people just are going to, so many more times you have to have a movie, and then 30 years later they come out with a sequel and it's a piece of garbage. I'm done. You have 30 years. That's like me giving you a budget, and you got 30 years to turn out the greatest piece of art you've ever created in your life, and you bring me a stick figure drawing. That's ridiculous. Yeah. I'm not doing it anymore.
You tell me if you agree with
this. Showing.
Tell me if you agree with this, Bill. It's to Jericho's point. Art is not easy to make. We went over Roger Rabbit and the animatronics and the 15 layers of animation and the people and the stuff and making comics. You guys don't even know what I go through to make comics. But the real way you make bad art is having ideologues there. And they're like, every story has a message. It's impossible for a story not to have a message, because in order to not have a message, you have to have nothing happen. No conflict. Nothing. You'd have to just have a picture of a glass of milk, and then that's the end of the story. Nothing happened. And even someone would say that's controversial. You're enslaving cattle, blah, blah, blah. But every story has a message. But what you don't do is tell half the audience, and if you disagree, you should go to the gulag. And that's what the left does with the movies and the TV and all of it now. If you disagree with our radical junior college left-wing feminist narrative that we forced into the story, if you disagree, you're a Nazi, and you should be in the gulag, lined up against the wall, and you know what? And how are you supposed to sell to customers when you talk to them that way? You know, Indiana Jones, I don't know if he was a leftist or a right-wing. They don't really say in the movie. He's just a tough guy. You know, he's a cool, tough guy. Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Rambo, I don't know their politics. And they don't tell me if I disagree that I need to go up against the wall.
Right.
You know, geez, like, stop doing that. So it's the death of art when you lie. You break story, that wants to tell everyone how superior you are and how you're the smartest guy in the room. It's no way to make art. It's really...
It's creating propaganda.
It's
That's just another piece of propaganda.
Okay. Well, Bill,
there's no way to do business.
It is 9:30, so I think we've been going 2.5 hours. This has been amazing. We'll have you back as much as you'll come, because you're just we just scratched the surface. I mean, almost 5 decades of this stuff for Bill, right? So there's just like he's worked on everything. Jericho, he almost worked on Indiana Jones stuff, James Bond stuff, like not animators and all that. So I want to know all about that kind of stuff too. So eventually,
this is part one of quite a few, I sure hope. And I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for being here. Thank you for what you did in the world of art and what you did, you know, in our childhood. Like, you can't. I don't know. Well, I'm sure everybody has this experience. I don't know what your movie is when you were a kid, or what TV show you had to watch when you were a kid. But in my house, as a kid, I can, you know, as a matter of fact, I've only done this one other time, I think, on this show. But I didn't even watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the show. I just went off of how the 100 times I've seen it as a kid. I didn't need to watch it. I remember every scene of that movie. I remember the lines. So, you know, and usually, even if I've seen it before, I'll watch it again just to refresh. But it's not necessary for that movie. We could do another show just off of that movie. But like Gabe was saying, I want to get into interviews like this. I don't do a ton of research, because the questions I have, I want them to come from what you're saying. I want them to be fresh and organic. You say something and it makes me think of something. You know, I want to just basically go off of what you're saying and the energy, man, that you bring, you know, to the show. And it's awesome. I hope to have you back.
I'll tell you, when I get scripts from the Academy, a lot of that is transcribed scripts of what the film is right now, right? It's like ChatGPT wrote the movie the way it is. It started out as Rambo and ended up the Muppets. How did that happen, right? I wanted to see the
That's a hell of a story.
You can make Muppets Rambo. I'm sure I think they did do that a little bit. Anyway. But it's just something where I wanted to see where with the audience lightning to me, because I totally see I'm out in the movie looking in, right?
Right.
And I'm not just laying something out there and people viewing it and walking away. I'm really getting an understanding of even how I think, you know, like, oh, well, why'd you do that? Oh, okay. I mean, I maybe never told that to anybody, right? And it's just stuff where if nobody explains this stuff, the next generation, it's forever lost, right? Because you can see the movie, and then the making of the movie is made by the people who made the movie.
Right.
Right. So that's the professional studio saying we're protecting our assets, right? Our assets, and test audiences of what you would like about how this movie was made. But the real truth is talk to the people.
Right. Right.
Well, thanks for talking to us.
Yeah.
I sure appreciate it.
One thing I want to, what you were saying about that, you blew my mind. So I interviewed Bill on my, we recorded it, and we're going to do a bunch, Bill and I, a bunch of those, make shorts and then post those on my wife's 10 years of experience. He's lived 1,000 years as an artist. I'm like, huh? So yeah, because when I talk to older artists than me, when I was younger, I take their 50 years. I take this guy's 30 years of experience. A younger guy than me, but he's good. I take his 15 years. You add all that up, I have hundreds and hundreds of years of knowledge of how to draw and how to think and all that. And I've always thought that, but I never put it that way in my own head. But when you said that, Bill, like you stopped me, like that's such a great way. So anyone out there watching this, if you've been inspired by this or that, or you have a dream, dude, you're going to live once. Go after it. Get around people like Bill, older than you, better than you at this, accomplished. Ask them questions. How did you do that? How do you do this? What do you think of this? Should I do this? And listen to your elders. That's what I was taught when I was little. Listen, damn it. So, and whoever you are out there, you'll get around right people and you hang out long enough, you'll get lucky eventually if you work hard. So I just wanted people to get that message.
Yep.
So,
I told my son the same thing. I said, if you work hard, success will find you. That's just the laws of the universe.
Yeah.
It would just work that way.
Yeah. Ram Dog, who is a movie buff, I can tell by his comments, he says, hopefully Bill can field questions for the people. Excellent idea, Ram Dog. I don't know how I missed that. Bill, we could bring in for a Q&A and just let people from the audience ask you movie questions.
Oh, yeah. That's easy enough, and it's whatever. Like I said, you never know where a question, you always have somebody think that's a really good question. You may not have thought it, but somebody, a little kid could say. I
remember exactly what you're talking about, Jericho. You were there. We were interviewing Dean Cain, Superman, very good friend of mine. We make comics together, and we're actually just personal friends. And I interviewed him for a thing for an audience, and I asked him, Dean, you were adopted yourself as a little boy. Did that inform you playing Superman, who was an orphan and then adopted? And he's like, he stopped and looked at me like, no one's ever asked me that before. What an amazing question. Yeah. I blew his mind. I figured people had already asked him that because he's adopted. Superman's adopted. So I love hearing that from you. Jericho's got to go, but Jericho, do you have 3 minutes for a hilarious story you told me at lunch? Can you tell the Angelina Jolie dinner in New York? Can you tell that one, or am I out of line?
No, that's right.
That sounds great.
Please tell him.
I get invited to the dinners and stuff for the actors and different things, and basically, it's like meet and greet. So you meet the actors, you see the film, you can ask questions. Well, she was doing Unbroken at the time, Soldiers, and then they had all the pilots and different things in there. So I got in there and I went over and sitting around the tables, and I went up to her and I said, hey, I really like what you did in Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, right? Because Mark Davis, who's a friend, I knew him at Disney's, and basically what he did was Mark created that character for Walt Disney for Sleeping Beauty. Anyway, I think it's a thing where you say something nice about their work and they appreciate it. So it's not like they're so far above. Everybody needs to be thanked and appreciated, no matter what level you're at, right? So I said, it's going to seem crazy, but would I like to, can I get your autograph? And it was like, I'm not an autograph fan. I said, Bill would love Angeline, right? And I said, here you go, Bill. And I was like, okay. So I brought it home. and I told my wife, Kate, well, how's that dinner and stuff down there? And I showed it to my wife, and my wife's like, oh, that's nice. She wrote you a nice little card here, kind of quiet. And I put the card down and kept it. I didn't want to lose it, right? So then the next day they're going to have another get together or something. Angelina and his crew wanted me to have dinner again, right? And I thought, oh, that's really nice. And so I think at the time she was breaking up with Brad or something. Not that I was something where I found very, very funny because my wife said, yeah, they called, but I told them you were busy. I told them you had a project you're working on. I said, I'm not working on a project. And my wife is like, well, no, it just, and I'm like, wait a second. It was like, no more, you know.
Yeah.
With Angeline, he's just.
You could have been on the cover of the Inquirer, and it would say, Bill Frake, Angelina's new boy toy.
Yeah.
Sunglasses on, and, you know.
Yeah. Catch you guys laughing together. Who's their new beau? Yeah, your wife said, no, he's busy forever.
She's like, okay. He's busy for the rest of your life. Funny.
My wife is always one to grab my collar and pull me back. Yeah.
Hey, we off to.
No, it is. I've been married for 42 years.
Yeah, you don't want to.
It works. So
there you go.
But we'll keep.
There you go. It's the smallest handcuff in the world, right here, fellas. How you say handcuff? And did you know that it's the exact same word for wife? Esposa. That means handcuffs, and it means wife. Look that up. I'm not kidding.
Oh, clink, clink.
Mi esposa.
I like El Lib. Yeah, in Spanish. But they brought me a Tom from San Diego that says El Lib, the boss, right? And it's the boss. We got Spanish cups in the house. They were big, which is and I'm like, what do you got? I don't know. Great. You got to have a wife with a sense of humor. Especially,
Especially married to me.
All right.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate
it. It was awesome. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Bill. I got to call you. And you didn't get to see it fully because we didn't do improv. Yeah. Store. She's a paid regular at the Comedy Store. I know how to write jokes. My God. Jericho's one of the funniest people I've ever met. He has about 370,000 YouTube followers, and he does like a lot of political commentary, but it's all hilarious, funny stuff. So I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Jericho did not put me up to this. You worked in Hollywood. You worked in animation forever. If you know people that hire people that can do voices and improv and are hilarious, Jericho can do this. He can do this. Jericho did not put me up to ask you this. I'm just telling you, because I'm tired of watching my hilarious friend not do tons of acting because I know he can do it. So,
well, you know how to practice that is that you get a spam call on the phone. You know, and you practice with the guy on the other side, right? You just do your voice. And then it's like, you want my credit card? You want my checkbook? You know, and you're just playing another voice, and then they can't tag your voice in AI your voice, and your cartoon voice can protect you from AI.
That's awesome. That's a great. And you know, one of my favorite things to do is if I have a long way to drive and I get one of those spam calls in my car.
Yeah.
Oh man, because I got nothing but time.
And it was so funny. You just change your voice and do it. You know, say I'm going to be an old man. I go, oh yeah, man. What,
that's a good point with the AI.
Call them and say, would you like this? Yeah, no. You say yes. Now they got yes. You can open up your other accounts. The word yes, right? So, but if it's with another voice, they can't do that. So you're actually doing encrypting and encoding a voice to protect you from theft.
I'm gonna have to master my Daffy Donald Duck. That's the other voice I've wanted to do since I was 7 that I cannot do is Donald Duck. I can make his noise, but I can't say any words. But I can't say anything. I can just make the noise.
My wife, and when the spam calls come in, I said, no, that's we don't know that numbers. No, that's mine. That's mine. You know, and I pick it up like, hello, what up? You know.
Just don't do Mickey Rooney from Breakfast at Tiffany's. That's
that's
not
my favorite. That's my favorite.
Anyway, I'm just they'll keep you guys.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well,
That's all we're trying
it was
to
a
do.
delight having you. It was amazing having you on. We'll have you back. You and I are going to be recording those episodes. We're going to be posting to the channel. And guys, go to bigmancomics.com. Get Dean Cain, All-American Lawman. Get Imperium, The Unstoppable Tyrus is almost done. Colors are done up to page 100. We got 25 pages to go. I think I'll be done with the book by the end of the month. And the Dean Cain sequel is already halfway drawn almost. The Unstoppable Tyrus sequel, I've already written the first draft of the script. So we are moving. We're going to have a lot of great comics for you in 2026. JG Talk 2 on Instagram is Jericho's. Right? Is that the right one? On
Right
Instagram,
one.
JG Talk 2.
Correct.
And then, Bill, is there anywhere people can find you, or would you like to be left alone?
I think you have a lot of people write my emails. I'm probably we'll get into that one. I figure.
Okay, we'll get into it, guys. We'll be back next week. I don't know what movie we're doing. I don't know who will be here, but we'll have a great time.
See this? Look at Ren Dog.
There you go. Tara Strong used to practice her voices on telemarketers. That's hilarious.
See?
Yeah, that's very funny. All right, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific on Double Impact.